Good evening, everyone. It is June 6th, and we are having our end-of-year school committee meeting tonight. The first item on the agenda is that we will be doing a school committee reorganization, and we will be taking nominations for the chair, vice chair, secretary, and any liaisons or additional subcommittee members tonight. So I will be accepting nominations at this time.
I'll make a motion for Dan to be chair.
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Congratulations, Dan.
Abstain, for the record.
I'm also abstaining.
Okay. All right. And that means you can now take over and take the rest of the nominations.
So I'll now entertain motions for vice chair.
Open a motion to nominate Dawn.
Is there a second? Are there any other nominations? All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstentions done. So there is a position that's sort of mentioned in our policies in one place, but not in another place, of a sort of a secretary or clerk, and I thought it might be helpful to do that to help organize with the minutes and basically
Organize his clerk in his title. Well, in his professional
Is
role.
professional role? So what you're saying is you don't want it.
How does everyone feel about it? Because I feel like it could help us. They could be that designated person to help us with minutes on occasions, and then it doesn't mean you always have to do it. We could hand it off, but at least that person would kind of collect them from everyone else. And I don't see the harm in it. I'd like to have that position back.
And I agree. I'd sort of set up a tracker for certainly executive minutes, but then also just making sure that we're getting the subcommittee minutes and.
I want to open a motion. Open a motion, nominate Joe.
I will second that motion. Joe, would you accept?
Accept it if you
Yeah.
don't want to.
I accept, yes.
Thank you. So all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? It carries 501. We have a secretary / clerk. So now we still have the superintendent evaluation subcommittee. We have the liaisons to do. I did want to see if there was any interest in, given what we're sort of proposing as part of the override, if there's an interest or you think we should do as a committee for sort of bringing back the start time subcommittee, or we could do that more at the committee level. So that's just something to talk about. But why don't we take superintendent evaluation? Is there someone who would like to be chair, or I could make a nomination for? Would you?
I'm already chairing policy.
Well, so of the four sort of senior.
I understand.
Everyone has a chair position, so there's going to have to be an overlap. So if you don't want it, that's fine. But
Sure. I'll chair it if you want me to.
if you're willing, I mean, Okay, so I'll make a motion to nominate Cynthia as chair for superintendent evaluation subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay, 501. And then breaking out the second two members, I was just looking at kind of the breakout and where people were. I thought that Sarah and Frank might make sense, but that's sort of up to the committee. Does that make okay? So I'll nominate Frank and Sarah to be the other two members of the superintendent evaluation subcommittee. Second. All's in favor?
Abstain.
Okay, that carries 4-0-2. So we now need to just go through. Oh, so do we want to do a start time subcommittee? Do we want to do that at the committee level? What do we think?
I think it would be helpful to have it on a committee level.
At the full committee level.
yes, I mean, we're taking on a lot, but I think it would be helpful to have that kind of org.
Can we table this to our discussion of our summer workshop so we can talk about our goals for the next year?
We can, yeah, the only reason I brought it up is just given, what we're.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but like, we're a lot that we're all trying to manage
Yep.
right this second, so I just,
Yeah, and people would have more of an understanding of what
Right.
it could entail. Sure, that makes sense.
Sure.
We're doing liaisons, though, right?
Yeah, we're going to do liaisons. Just bring up the, apologize to those of you who are here. We'll get through this as quickly as possible. So we have ARPA, Diverse Holliston, Economic Development, the Flag Field Task Force, though I'm not sure we need that, but we can certainly do it again. HABA, HMAPA, the PTO, Youth and Family Services. We did sort of have a start times task force. Again, I'm not sure we need that if we're going to do it at the committee level. CPAC, the Wellness Council, and those are the liaisons. I reached out to Hillary, but she wasn't able to be here. Oh, is there? I'm missing. No, Diverse Halls. Okay, so I reached out to Hillary, and she requested CPAC, Diverse Halls, and then do something with start times. Since we're tabling start times, put that aside. But she had requested those two liaison positions. Historically, those two liaisons have had at least 2 members. So we'll go through. And Cynthia, would you like to stay as ARPA liaison?
yeah, it's winding down.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
sending everybody a reorganization request form, if you just like check, just so they can see what you're talking about.
Like the different groups.
Yep.
And select
I
board
just
member.
shared it with everyone.
Thank you.
Select board member, or select board chair Tina Hine had reached out about the town MBTA 3A zoning
Yep.
meetings and having a liaison from school committee on that.
What
Yep,
was
I had
that,
that
sorry?
on. Yep.
The MBTA 3A zoning
Oh, yeah.
planning,
Yeah.
like they're having a meeting right now. Like it started at 6. And I think it's something that would be carried through until at least, beyond October. But I do think they have plans for an October town meeting. So they would, wondering if there might be a school committee liaison to that.
And just in case for anyone at home, what we're talking about is that there's the state passed a law that you have to set aside or zone for a certain amount of affordable housing. So we're going through that process now. Obviously, why that would impact the schools is obviously new housing, new students.
Do
Just
we
to-
know when it meets?
I think it meets at all different times. Like tonight, it was meeting tonight remotely at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So we could get more information on their next meeting. But I do think they wanted to finalize some level of plan by August and have something on the October town meeting. So I do anticipate they'd be meeting in the summer. What do we think?
I think we should have one. Is anyone interested in doing it? So why don't we go through the list that Cynthia sent out and we can add.
Yeah, let me just add.
Where is that? Okay. All right. So for PTO, who would be interested in being the liaisons to the PTO? Joe?
I'm interested. Yep.
Sarah, do you want to continue just giving your history or? Okay. No, do it for 2. For 2.
Yeah.
Cynthia, you'd like to do 2?
Yeah, we usually both have done that, yeah.
What's that?
Yes. I can be an alternate, though, it's fine.
Okay. So I guess that is change.
Cynthia and Joe can do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So actually, let's just go through and Cynthia will fill out the grid, and then we'll
Calling that one for Tina?
we'll vote
3A?
the whole thing,
3A.
or someone who's filling out the grid.
I'm filling
Okay.
out. I'm putting
sorry.
X's. You're adding the.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we'll just vote it all at the end.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's no middle school PTO right now, so we don't need to do that one. S and what am I? What's this? I'll start this.
Safe and supportive
Safe and
schools.
supportive
I don't know
schools.
if we even have that right now.
Have a-
Do we have a separate, we don't have one?
Nope, okay, so we
Oh,
can
and
remove
then
that.
I guess add, is the equity steering committee
Equity.
going to continue? Okay.
I was actually going to say that will most likely be something that we looked at one.
Okay, so then let's add that as a liaison position. Perfect.
So do you
So,
wanna
so
continue?
Yeah, I'd like to
Okay.
Yep.
continue with that.
we did have 2. Is there anyone that has? interest, we can have one is fine too. I think it just, okay. So we'll keep with Sarah on that.
I think the other thing is some of them meet like during the day, so it's more like whether you are
Sure.
able to do that.
So CPAC was one
Hillary
that
said that she
Hillary had
wanted
asked. Is there anyone else that's usually a 2 would be interested in being the lead? Okay.
Interested in CPAC.
So Hillary and Frank. Haba,
I would like to do Hava.
okay. Would anyone else like to do Haba? One is you, yes?
Sure.
Okay, so Sarah and Dawn. HMAPA,
I'd like to do HMAPI.
okay. Cynthia, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I'll continue with HMAPA.
Okay. Diverse Holliston, that was the other one that Hillary had called out. And so we should add that. And is there someone else that would like to work with her on that?
Sure, I will.
Joe, okay.
You didn't mention the Holliston Coalition.
Oh, yes. How could I forget that one? The Holliston.
I'm going to replace him, the
Yep.
middle school PTO with that.
Yep. So are you the liaison with the Holliston Coalition Against Hate and Bias? Would you like to continue with that?
That's fine.
Would anyone like to join her on that? Frank, okay. So Frank and Sarah.
Okay.
Flag. We have, Cynthia, you want to do flag, so I think that.
Yeah, I'm still just, it's just sort of like a liaison position. So
Sure.
yeah, it's not, I don't need it, we don't have to have.
Youth and Family Services. Okay. Put Sarah on for that one, and then do Wellness Council, that's still meeting, so. Anyone interested in wellness?
Looks like you.
Okay, wait, no, that has meetings.
Yes, yes it does.
Yes, it does. have meetings.
All right.
I see a blank row here, Dan.
I know, me
so
too. There's like nothing on that one.
I nominate you. What would you like to react?
Oh, I'll take wellness.
Wellness meets 4 times a year.
Yes.
Okay,
It's not a heavy lift.
I can manage that. So you didn't put an X there?
Yes, I did.
No.
Okay. Hold on.
Just
I have to
not
hit tab.
And then 3A.
I'd be interested in it, but I don't know when they're going to meet, so I need to know more information.
Why don't we assign 2 or even 2 people and an alternate and then figure it out when they meet? Because I don't know. I think this might have been one of their first meetings.
Okay. Is there anyone who wants to be the alternate?
You're
I know, something with Sarah, okay?
somebody hold Sarah's arm down.
Yeah,
Sarah, do you really want?
Interesting.
It is.
they are, but you know,
They're kind of all tied together, like the equity, the 3A.
Sarah, go for it. Do you really want it?
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
But that'll be coordinated with Cynthia, so.
yes,
Our
absolutely.
schedule's
We
kind of
can
like-
tag team.
I will be your
Yeah.
alternate. Okay, I'll put a.
Thank you.
And then I would also just point out that since my row is basically empty at the very bottom where it says the chair also serves as liaison to the tri-board committee, select board, and
Yes,
finance
you're
committee, and the
welcome.
town
You're welcome.
administrator. So I have
For you.
3 additional liaison roles,
They're built in.
built in. Yeah, it's a built-in feature. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the liaison and positions as
Okay, yeah. I just wanna make sure.
and then if Hillary wants to join some other ones, we can add.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have.
Does anybody know what else she expressed interest in?
Just those 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So.
there's 2, CPAC and.
Right, and those were what she
Two.
had expressed interest in. So.
Okay, not 3, 2. right?
Well, start times was the 3rd, but we don't
Okay.
have, yeah.
Oh, I think we had talked about, well, let's talk about it, like, yeah.
Okay. So
I feel like the scope of that needs to be really defined.
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So all is in favor of the liaisons as presented in the spreadsheet in front of you?
Moved by Cynthia.
Second, by Sarah.
All's in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. So I believe now we are done reorganizing. Before we begin, I just wanted to acknowledge that today is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And I just think that it's especially powerful to reflect back on the world at that time, especially given the division that we're seeing in the world today. And recognize that the best of what you can do as we work together for a greater good. And I just think that I just want to make sure that we take a moment to honor all those who fought on that day in that war, including both my grandfathers, as well as those who have served after. So it's a good day to remember what's important. We'll take the consent agenda now quickly, and then we'll go to Mr. Keast. Is he on?
Yes.
Okay,
He'll
great.
show once we, yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as laid out in your packet, including some gifts that are down there at the bottom, in case people didn't see that.
Moved by Dawn.
Second by Sarah.
All in favor? It carries 6-0. So we're just going to take something a little out of order, just to be cognizant of Mr. Keith's time on the Zoom. We have an update on, it's a maintenance update on the Holliston High School wall.
I mean, people don't love the Crest toothpaste
mean,
green we've got going on there?
Sears van, Cynthia.
I think it's spectacular.
I do too. I'm digging it. I think we should make it to a mural. Put some like whales
That's
on
actually
it or
not the
something.
worst idea. I mean, that's
It's
like,
not.
you know, that's actually a pretty.
Get some kids
No,
up
can we get kids up?
No, we're not putting kids up there. Definitely not.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe just like
can
the
have,
youngest kids.
Like the art department, like we'll just hang like Mr. Schiff and
They can
Doug Black, and we'll just hang them from
Okay.
like, you know,
As well as so high school wall and the
from those
playgrounds.
painter things, you know what I'm talking
So,
about.
Mr.
Yeah.
Keith, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you moving me up on the agenda. So, Cynthia was talking about, whale or mural. How about a mural of Keith?
I love it.
So
It's a great
asked for
idea.
that by
He'll
Keith.
always be with us forever and
Why are
ever.
we taking the agenda out of order? Point of order, Mr. Chair.
You're out of order.
So, as you all know, just noticed, we have this nice turquoise color on the exterior of the wall of the auditorium. And of course, I'll back up. This is all being done to address the leaks that are in the auditorium hallways and the band classrooms. This is a multi-step project of which initially started with adding mechanical fasteners between the brick wall and the concrete block wall, and that was done in the fall. And now the contractor is installing a waterproofing membrane. It's a fluid-applied membrane. You've seen it. It's 2 coats. It also serves as a vapor barrier for the insulation that's going to go on that wall. So that vapor barrier is being completed this week. Hopefully it'll be done by tomorrow. Then they'll move to putting metal brackets across the bricks to hang aluminum panels. And these are aluminum panels that basically match what's on the field house now. So they're beige metal panels that will basically line the perimeter of the brick wall, and that will sandwich the insulation and then have the waterproofing barrier. After that is done, they will then go along top of the perimeter of the roof and add flashing to go over the top of these aluminum panels. This is all slated to be completed by the middle of July. And this will address the leaks, the ongoing leaks that we've had around the auditorium for the past several years. Any questions? And I'll add that it's very difficult to hear, so if you don't mind talking really loudly, but if you have any questions before I move on.
Can I just make one comment? James, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you, really, because this has been a long time coming, and I think Keith can weigh in on this, because I rely on him for historical context, but I believe he told me it's been about 15 years that this wall has been leaking. Is that correct, Mr.
Well,
Boudet?
it's been leaking longer than that.
Longer than
It's been on my capital project since 2005, so.
Okay, that's what I was getting. So I think the issue we had, it had not arisen to capital because it was going to cost upwards of $1 million, and it's gotten to the point that we finally do have to address it. So this is the first year we've been able to move it as a capital project, and thank you for taking on the extra work involved to get that to fruition. We appreciate that.
My pleasure. It benefits us all.
Any questions for Mr. Keith?
Any other questions?
Nope. Why don't you move on to the second part?
Okay. Next are the playgrounds at Miller and Placentino, as you know, there are 3 in various stages in terms of condition. The lower playground, the lower Miller playground, which is basically the newest playground, the structure itself is in good condition, but the surfacing around that playground needs to be replaced. I'm in the process of getting quotes to replace that with a rubberized surface. I've received 2 quotes. I'm still waiting on a 3rd, which I should have by the middle of June. Once we select the contractor, that work can begin. And that's really what's needed for that what I'm calling the lower playground, is to replace the surface. The swing area has this ground-up rubber surface. I propose that we remove that and replace it with wood chips. Those rubber chips are going everywhere. And also to replace the swings, the chains, the actual swing structure will remain, but the swings would be replaced. And the costs that are coming in for that are, I consider, quite reasonable and within budget. So that's something that if the committee, if the committee so chooses to move forward with, we could do that. On the middle or the back playground, also at Miller, I've had 2 quotes and 2 contractors come out. They reviewed that playground. Their recommendation, just because of the condition of it and its age, is to replace it. It's a difficult location of where it is because of the way the ground slopes and all the wood chips that are rolling down the hill. So the recommendations I've been getting is to replace that structure in its entirety, move it a little further up the hill, and then terrace the area down to the swings. Or if we want, move the swings up, closer to the existing location of the playground. That area would then get a rubberized surface, and then we would, terrace with timbers down to the lower area where there's, the field and that round structure. And I'm not sure what it's called, but there's the round play structure that's there as well. I've received preliminary costs for that, and again, it's surprisingly reasonable. I did ask the folks that came through and said, did you see an imminent hazard with these structure, and certainly that middle structure? They said no. I said, do we need to shut this thing down? And they said no. It's still usable, but cosmetically it looks bad. It's worn out. It's old. Again, my recommendation would be, once we get all the pricing, is to replace that structure, relocate it slightly, and do some of the grading in that area. And then the last structure, which is the Placentino kindergarten area, that's in reasonably good shape. Again, no big concerns from a safety standpoint, but the recommendation was, if you go through the gate, if the children go through coming from the school, the structure to the left, the recommendation was to replace that. A lot of the plastic components have depolymerize and faded. So the recommendation would be to remove that, rejuvenate the rubber surface. And you might not know it, but because of all the wood chips, but there is a rubber surface that goes all the way around that structure. And so the thought would be to rejuvenate that and then add more around the base of that structure. Replace the the swings. A number of the benches that are in that area are bent and twisted. The recommendation would be to replace those as well. The preliminary costs that I received from that, I feel are reasonable. I think we can do all 3 of these projects within the budget that Dr. Custa and Mr. Boudet and I talked about. But it's a matter of going through the procurement process, identifying the right contractor to get this work done. Any questions?
James, is this work that can be done
well, within our existing operating budget, and can it be done over the summer in preparation for the fall?
Yes, so the goal, actually, firstly, I'll defer to Susan and Keith on the budget. In terms of getting to work, yes, the goal would be to have this done during the summer in time for fall school.
Thank you.
Want me to speak to the budget?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yes, so this is what we had hoped to be able to do this summer anyhow, and that's why these quotes coming in now, and the time frame James thinks is going to be able to work out for us as well. We didn't want to close it if it was not an immediate safety need, which we were told it wasn't, and also we didn't want to close it and have people working on school property with our younger ones if we could avoid that. So summer is the best time scenario for that. We've also been working with Dion Pulio from Extended Day. We've had multiple conversations this year. So one of the things, our Extended Day program, we offset a lot of the costs for that by absorbing the program in our buildings, and there are some, so because of that, they have some funds that they can help support the building of these projects, because the Extended Day is using this as well. So it would be, they would help fund the project, but then also use it for all the hours that they are available to.
So just to be clear, this is not being taken out of our operating budget?
No, it's one-time funds.
It's purpose-specific funds.
And we've been trying, this has been sort of a multi-year goal, and we've been trying to work to that point of making that a possibility. And I've been meeting with Dion the last couple of years to talk about, hopefully we could get to that point, and now we are at that point.
Keith, do you think you can have something for us to just sort of vote on to authorize it for either the meeting before town meeting or the 27th or whenever we meet next?
It'll all depend on when at least a preliminary look at all the bids come in. James and I can get together and kind of ballpark something.
Even if it's a not to exceed.
Right, yep, I believe we can do that.
So that would be.
When is it getting put out to bid?
Well, the Miller piece, the rubberized piece right now, James is collecting the bids. They're all from state bid list vendors, so he's looking at 3 prices for that. For the other 2 projects, again, it's with state bid list vendors, which changes the practice that we have to do.
Right.
We're going to have at least 2 quotes for the Miller one, correct, James? And at least 1, if not 2, for the Placentino, correct?
We're going to have 3 for all.
Okay, that'll be at least 2, so. Yeah, so we possibly could have that within about a week, you think, or at least ballparky?
Yeah, so I literally today received the second quote, and then I'm meeting with a contractor on June 18th, and we should have a quote shortly thereafter.
Okay, great. So we'll have more information. And James, I guess can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
And you were talking
Don't
about-
mind talking loudly because it is difficult.
On the Miller playground, the kind of the adding additional wood chips to the surface, we're still going to have that handicap access to those swings, right? The kind of pathway that we have right now.
You're talking, well, all of the playgrounds will be ADA compliant after this work. They will have the appropriate ramps and rubberized surface. Are you talking specifically about the lower Miller playground?
I'm talking about the swing area at Miller and the handicap access to those swings.
Yeah, so the ADA access will be compliant, if you will, for all of these playgrounds with all this work.
Once we have all 3 reports back, we can then determine which one's going to make the most sense for us and also financially as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Any further questions for James? This is great. I think it's addressing some big issues, concerns that have been raised in the community, and I appreciate your time and the work that you've done finding these solutions. So.
Yeah, and there are 2 other projects I'm working on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yep. Go ahead.
The acrylic sky domes at Miller. Those are finally in, but we're going to wait till school ends before we put those in. So just not to disrupt. So that's the delay on that. And then we've ordered the new rooftop unit for the Adams School Auditorium. It's a very large unit, 60-ton, not weight, but in terms of cooling capacity. unit. So that went out to bid. We got good pricing. The good news is that unit is, provides natural gas heating as well as air conditioning. And we have the funding available to put in a hybrid system. So it is a heat pump, so an air source heat pump with auxiliary gas heat. So most of the time, it'll run in heat pump mode for heating and cooling. And then on the super cold days, it'll kick in natural gas. So it should be, a very efficient unit, and especially if, ultimately we put solar on the schools, it's a win-win situation.
Excellent, awesome. Thank you, James. And just for those at home, those two last projects, the funding source from them is coming from prior capital requests to town meeting. So that's money that's already been appropriated from town meeting. So I don't want to cut you off again, James. So anything else before?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, James.
I appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay.
He gone.
No, I You're doing an amazing job.
So moving back up towards the top of our agenda under communications, we have the introduction of the 2024-2025 student reps. It's that time of year. So Ms. Lasher, if you'd like to take that away.
Sure, yep. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jen Lasher. I'm the social studies teacher and department leader here at the high school. I also have the pleasure of being the advisor of the Student Advisory Council. And one of our greatest honors is that we get to bring every year 2 students to school committee meetings to share what's going on in the schools and also serve as liaisons between the students' administration and school committee. So the tradition is that the 2 students who serve as regional reps to the State Student Advisory Council during their junior year, because of all the work and time that they've put in, they are chosen to be the student representatives on school committee. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you newly senior students, Caroline Harris and Ramya Vempati. So welcome.
Welcome. Congratulations. So now we're going to put you right to work. Well, first of all, introduce yourselves, and then if you do have any updates for us, you should feel free to do that. But this is really more of an introduction. So tell us about.
I'm Caroline Harris.
I'm Romy Vempati.
Don't worry. There are like only 5 people online watching, so it's.
So, not really much has been happening. Graduation was last Sunday, so congratulations to the class of 2024. And then we just had step-up day, which I think everyone really enjoyed, and it went smoothly. And, yeah.
We also have finals next week. But other than that, I think.
Ready for them?
I hope.
Great. Well, welcome, and we can certainly talk about next year. As we get into that, and what kind of role you guys would like to play from a week-to-week basis. Moving on to individual comment from the school committee members. Sarah?
I just wanted to say I attended there was a Global Citizen program last Thursday. And it was really impressive. I thought the students did a fantastic job. It's a really neat program, really encompasses a lot of great qualities, I think, that the kids draw from their classes, they were public speaking, they were putting together great profiles. I think they're applying a lot of the, sometimes you hear that kids, students, myself, you take a class and you're like, well, when am I ever going to use this again? And I think all of the students who presented were really demonstrating skills that they were passionate about, they were learning in their classes. So just wanted to really congratulate the students, as well as Mr. Clay, Ms. Clay, Ms. Mills, and Ms. Frost, who really do a nice job with that program. So I just wanted to thank everyone for that. And that's really all I have right now.
Just wanted to say I also attended the service learning event on May 28th. Amazing event. I learned a lot. There's specifically a booth on civic education, so I told her to connect with you, Joe. But also learned just the varying level of things they're getting involved in the community, all the way from helping kids in Africa to saving reptiles. Like I learned a ton. Great experience. We should definitely be promoting more of that in the community. Pretty good audience too, I'll be honest. It was 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, and there's about 25, 30 people here. Obviously next year would love to even see more. I want to say congratulations to the communications team last week. They were able to work with Dan, and many thanks to Dan, I know he's not here right now, for opening up the email, ability to sign up for Holliston Public School emails all year long. I know it was definitely a point of conversation, and Joe and then the committee worked quickly to pull that together. So thank you so much. And yeah, that's all I have this week.
I just wanted to once again congratulate the class of 2024. We were all there to attend at the ceremony Sunday, and I think I speak for all of us when I say that we were really overjoyed to join you on your special occasion, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Great, thank you. Cynthia?
I just have one thing. Today, the French consulate, and I don't want to steal Dr. Cuska's thunder over this, but I needed to, just congratulate Madame Picard, who is retiring this year, and she taught two of my kids, and they adore her, and so do I. So I just wanted to thank her for all her years of service to the Holliston Public Schools, and the French consulate came today to give a distinction in bilingual education to the Miller Elementary School, and Madame Picard received that on behalf of the HPS. So thank you. And thank you to the French consulate as well.
Can I just add to that?
Yes, go ahead. Yep.
More appropriate now. So yes, I did want to recognize the distinction that we received yesterday at Miller School from the French consulate. Mustafa Soykort, the Consul General of France, came to our schools with his team yesterday, and as well as we had, I'm not going to recall, but I know Ida would recall it, our Olympian judo representative as well. Thank you. But we received the very timely and appropriate distinction called the Labelle France Education Distinction Award, and we're only one of 63 schools in the entire country to receive such a distinction for all the hard work of our French immersion program. In particular, Claire Picard worked with Ida Pappas. Thank you, Dr. Pappas, as well, for the opportunity to apply for this and then have them come to provide this distinction and award to our school. So this is very the work that we've done with our 45 years, I think we said, with the French immersion program was what I believe Claire Picard had said yesterday, which I was amazed because I thought it was decades, but I thought it was in the 30-something. So I will be sharing more information in our community newsletter about that, but it really is an amazing distinction for our school system.
Yeah, and I was disappointed that I couldn't attend, but
it was a lovely commemoration for both the award and also for Claire, who's retiring this year.
that's all I have.
And just very briefly, tomorrow evening at 6:30 is the Holliston High School Pops concert, and if weather permitting, it will be outside on Committee and Field, and I guess if we do see some rain, it will be held inside in the auditorium. Just wanted to, preschool and kindergarten carnival were last week, and also a shout out to guidance at the high school for the senior scholarship evening that was held last week, Wednesday, May 29th, and they were able to coordinate awards from community, different groups, over $157,000 in scholarships to 63 of our students. So I know it's incredibly generous, and that the students were very grateful for that. And that's for our class of 2024 graduating students.
So Cynthia and Dr. Kuska covered what I was going to cover, but I'll just simply, I know we're going to deal with we're going to highlight retirements in a little bit, but I just want to congratulate Claire Picard on her retirement. She taught both of my children, and I was able to attend, and it was a great event, and thank you to the PTO for sponsoring the snacks and food for that. So appreciate that. So next up, we've invited our distinguished, one of the distinguished select board members. Yeah, if Jen, could you just move the microphone?
Come over here if you want to.
Wherever you're more comfortable.
Or right over here by Johnny.
But we're going to do public comments, so probably.
Oh, so we need to.
Yeah. Mr. Ben Sparrow to give us a brief update on select board activities in regards to special town meeting that has been requested by the schools.
Yes, so I'm Vice Chair Ben Sparrow from the select board. And do you want me to just give a couple comments?
Whatever you
update. So we met last night and we voted to close the warrant for the special town meeting on June 20th at 7 p.m. in the auditorium here. And there's one article in the warrant. No one else came forward with additional articles. I mean, with 48 hours, I'm amazed we didn't get multiple. So the only thing that we changed, we certainly have your article as is, but we also added an adjustment for some town employees to maintain equity across the entire organization for non-union personnel as well as the union personnel. We talked about and approved a transfer to send out postcards to all residents. So there'll be a postcard like we've sent out for the last few town meetings with a QR code. There'll be translation services on the website, and there's the postcard includes, I believe, Spanish and Portuguese, but the translation services on the website, I think there's about 150 languages, so people need some services, those will be available for the warrant and for the other supplemental materials. Additionally, we don't have a date yet for the election, for the ballot. September 3rd looks unlikely. It's a complicated day. It's probably like the most complicated day to put something like this on. So it's probably going to have to be a different day. We recognize that the speed with getting this completed, bless you, prior to September 15th to include it in the FY25 tax assessment. So it will be before September 15th, but I don't have a date at this time. There's a lot of moving parts there, and the clerk, the town clerk, needs to answer some questions and understand get some logistical things done. There's going to be multiple elections happening in that area, so there'll be things crossing in the mail and making sure that everything is, there's adequate resources to look into each of those to make sure that they can sort them, and then also at the time of the election itself. And so it's a complicated thing, and they're trying to iron out the logistics. So hopefully, my hope is, and I cross my fingers, I don't ever like having absolutes here, but I would think we would have a date at the latest by special town meeting, but I think it would be before then. So just, there'll be something soon. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions or
So I'll just start really by thanking you, Tina, Damon, Travis, the whole sort of staff, Liz, for taking this on. I realize it's sort of it's been a quick turnaround, especially during a unexpected but busy sort of recount and everything going on. So there's been a lot going on at town hall, and
the town clerk's been incredibly busy, and she's got a lot going on, and she's making a lot of stuff work and juggling a lot of things. So
so really appreciate
she does a nice job.
Everyone's time, especially given that it's a one article. Yes. The warrant. Just as far as the time of the election goes, I mean, can we narrow it down for people a little? Is it going to be July?
Well, so the law says that it has to be within 90 days of the special town meeting. So that works out to be like September 17th or something like that. We have to get it done by September 15th. I would guess it probably sometime in August, late August, is probably my guess here. When the intention that I think everyone has is to include mail-in, because of course people are out of town, so that way there would be access for people to be able to have to be able to participate if they're not in Holliston that particular day that is chosen. So I can't give you a solid thing because I haven't talked to the clerk, but I would say probably late August if I had to guess, but we'll have a better sense of it. Hopefully we'll get an update on Monday night to be able to get a little bit more of a sense of it, and as soon as I know, you'll know. So
That would be great, certainly, if we could have it by Monday, so we let people know.
I hope so, but I can't guarantee it.
And I'll just put a plug in, though this is, to be clear from those at home, this is not the date, because the select board sets the date, but I'm just going to put a plug in for the 27th of August, first day of school.
The clerk also has a...
No.
We set the date, but the clerk is going to tell us when she can do it, so that her, she's
Ben,
pointing there.
is my understanding that you also can have early voting as well? Will that also be required to take place as well? Or is that an option that they can choose to do or not do?
I have to talk to the clerk about
I can't
that.
remember
I
what
think,
she said
again,
about it.
I think what's complicated is that putting it like a week before another election.
I know.
It's going to be, we want to try to avoid confusing voters.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure people have the ability to participate, but also she has the resources to be able to do the things
Yep.
that she needs to do, because she's
Right.
basically doubling the work.
Yes.
So I would say possibly, but she'd have to answer that. I can't answer that for her.
Are we concerned with how close it is to the primary?
Yeah.
Like a mail-in?
That's the main concern.
Very concerned.
That because what would happen is that we'd wind up having multiple envelopes for people. So if they put it in the wrong envelope or they send it in the wrong time, does it get excluded? Do they get notified? There's lots of complexities there. That's the main problem.
Yeah, I understand
that
the
you
first day
had.
of school, but do we want to separate that more?
Well, then you do it earlier in the summer when more people are likely.
Basically we have a lot.
It's a catch-22.
We have a lot of bad options. Is basically the best way to put it. So we have to pick the least bad option. So
It's just to be September 15th, everything needs to be done and settled.
in order to get
If
it to the
if
tax
it's
recap
for
for
an open
FY25,
recap.
yes.
And
So-
that's a Sunday.
Right, and so if you did it, say, after the primary, and there was a recount, you could, I mean, so there's a,
It needs to be settled before September 15th.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben. Did you more?
No, actually, I do have one question for people here. I've been trying to work on putting together a forum at the senior center, and formally inviting you folks. I talked to Lisa Porchetta, and she said, whoever wants to do it, I'll give you the key and we can figure something out. And I just kind of wanted to know who should I work with to make that schedule. I'd probably wind up being next week. I can't imagine there's not a lot of time here. But I'd like to put something together and invite you. I'm also going to extend the invitation to Kevin Rudd and the assessor, because there's certainly some questions about potential tax to be able to have some abatements. So I would ask him to join us as well. But I want to know who'd like to join, and so that way I can work with them to make the schedule.
So work through me, but if there's interest, we can. If there's more than 3 people interested, I mean, we can also just post it as a meeting, and that way more people can.
Well, I'll be there.
I know. I didn't want to put that on you, Cynthia. I know you're there, but I didn't want to put that on you.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yep.
What kind of time, do we have any kind of time, a rough time?
That's kind of like, based on what Lisa was saying, we can kind of figure it out, but I wanted to sort of see who would I work with specifically to say, hey, let's figure out the times that we can go over there. I know that, I think the meet and greet for the new candidates was a pretty well-attended event, and I'm hoping that we could get some folks there to attend as well.
We coordinated with a lunch.
What's that?
Yeah.
We coordinated
It works.
with a
Yeah, well, yeah.
So that would have to be a Monday or a Wednesday if we're coordinating with lunch.
Okay.
Not
Well, I
that
got my coffee
we're
on
big fans of snacks.
I do
Don't
my
worry about
coffee
that.
on Friday mornings. It is well attended by
It is.
5 people.
So let's work together. We'll work with the committee, but it sounds like maybe we'll just post it anyway, just so that way.
Yeah,
if you wanna-
and so I'll work through you
Yeah.
to schedule it, and we can, and invite who would like to join and answer questions, because I can certainly answer questions about the logistics and things
Right.
like that, but I would I would like to have somebody who can answer more specifically about the school and education-related questions.
Maybe just throw 2 or 3 times. I can share it with the committee and see what works, and then we can.
Sure.
Will work?
Yeah, we can figure it. The only thing I have to go through the schedule to sort of see. I don't want to, if something's being used, I don't want to create something that we're doing it during yoga or something like that. So.
Okay.
And that's all I got.
And you'll stick around for a few minutes just in case there's any public comment.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
So now we are moving to public comment. We'll give everyone 2 minutes. and we'll start with those in the room. If there is anybody on Zoom, if you just use the raise hand function now, and we'll take you after we take the people in the room. Robert Principe is first on the list.
So I'd like to reserve my comment until after the Audit Steering Committee presentation.
We're doing public comment now, Robert. We'll see if there's...
I'd like to reserve my comment until after the Audit Steering Committee presentation.
I appreciate that, but we're doing public comment now. We have a long meeting.
I'm not going to take any more time at that particular point.
Okay. So you don't want to do public comment?
Yes, I do. That's what I'm here for.
So now is the opportunity.
So that I'd like to register my discontent with the lack of ability to engage what I'm here for.
No, I understand.
We're not talking about this mammoth adjustment in the schedule. It's just a minute. Take 2 minutes now, take 2 minutes later.
Okay. Allison?
Thank you. As I understand it, public comment is scheduled to happen at this time in the meeting, even if my public comment is related to something that's going to happen later in the meeting. Mm-hmm. Okay. My name is Allison Quinn, and I live at 37 Pilgrim Road. I'm a former president of the Holliston Music and Arts Parents Association and mother of 3 high school graduates, Holliston High School graduates, all of whom benefited from the band program beginning in the 4th grade. Music and art are integral parts of the education of the whole child. Myriad articles and studies bear this out. Holliston families have been fortunate to have instrumental instruction for students beginning in 4th grade, with opportunities for students to explore traditional repertoire as well as jazz beginning in 5th grade. The Holliston school system has produced graduates who have gone on to be music educators, performers, technicians, and award-winning recording artists like Joe DiMessina. I was recently made aware of some changes in the structure of the band, chorus, and general music program at the Miller and Robert Adams Middle Schools, and would like to present some questions on behalf of myself and other interested parents. My first question is, how will 2 FTE teacher positions be able to manage the band, the chorus, and the general music classes? Is there a loss of an FTE because of this change in the structure of the personnel and the staffing? On paper, the change may be cost neutral, but I'm concerned about how it will work in reality, having 2 teachers shared between schools, which, to my knowledge, have disparate schedules and will essentially be doing the work that is currently covered by 3 individuals. How will the proposed change to the Miller School instructional hours, due to the new teacher's contract, impact the ability of the schools to share these teachers? Will the middle school schedule also be aligned with the high school for staff sharing and busing purposes going forward? So if there are schedule changes, it's in the past, it's been very difficult to share staff between schools because of the schedules being off. So I'm concerned that the plan to have 2 FTEs, each doing a 4 through 8 grade level shared between the 2 schools, will be really logistically challenging. There will likely have to be adjustments to the way in-school and after-school instruction is done. Can you elucidate for parents what they can expect going forward? Will the RAMS, the Robert Adams Middle School, daily schedule be adjusted at all to make up for any loss of after-school practice so that students don't lose instructional time on their music and ensemble work? Will there be any gain or loss of ensembles, for example, the RAMS Jazz Band, the 5th grade jazz band, or any select chorus? And what will be the stipend expectations for the 2 FTE teachers, where previously these extracurricular activities or after-school parts of the program were covered by 3 individuals? So I'm concerned about taking what was done by 3 people and having it done by 2 people, and I want to make sure that there's no loss to instruction or opportunity to our students. Thank you.
You got those, we can address it as we go through the
We will be speaking to that later.
Thank you.
I think we may have to give more details, though, at a later date, because I jotted down a lot of the questions.
Sure. Just,
But I'm not sure we
Allison,
can.
would you email me?
Yes.
yeah,
Perfect,
great.
thank you.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Thank you. Kathy Walters.
What? We couldn't hear you.
Kathy Walters.
Oh.
Sorry.
Hello, I'm Kathy Walters, the current president of Holliston Music Parents Art Association. I've had 3 children come through Holliston schools, 2 of which were in band through high school, and 1 is currently playing in college, and 1 plans to, based on the experiences they've had through Holliston Public Schools. The reason why Miller, Rams, and the high school has had a high turnover the past 3 years has revolved around pay. Teachers are not hired as a 1.0 instructor. They've been paid at a 0.5 or 0.75 of the 1.0 salary. And sadly, we've had some amazing teachers work for Holliston, but have only lasted 12 to 18 months because they've been able to obtain a similar position in another school district that would pay them better. A band teacher is necessary at both Miller and Rams. The Miller band teacher starts the students off with basic instrument instruction and currently has around 200 plus students, which is a third of the school's population. To teach a class of 4th and 5th students a wide range of new instruments when they're starting with absolutely no experience is quite a specialized skill. That same teacher will then need to turn around and be a mentor to more advanced students at Rams, developing their craft. Some of these 8th graders are already helping out with the high school jazz band. This change would be comparable to making the same person coach a soccer and swim team at the same time. They all require different lessons and skills that need improvement, so it's a challenge to have to plan for all of it at once. A core class teacher, so say like history or English, has about 4 classes they teach a day. Most of the time is the same curriculum, the same one each year, and few stay after school for an hour or so for clubs. The current band and chorus class schedule at Rams consists of small groups of students with mixed instruments for band, and for chorus it's mixed music parts. They only come together after school. If you were to combine the elementary school and middle school band programs, the band and chorus teacher will effectively be teaching 7 different classes, all with a curriculum that changes every year, stay after school for chorus and concert band and jazz band rehearsals, and have to constantly move in between schools. That is not reasonable to ask for someone, especially if the person is new to the school system. There are only 4 afternoons available for after-school activities. Due to the skill levels, 4th and 5th graders have separate afternoon rehearsals. Same at RAM, 6th grade rehearsals are separate from 7th and 8th graders. We're afraid some after-school music ensembles will have to be cut. When will jazz band rehearsal take place? What will happen during half days? What building will this teacher be going to? What will the schedule be for MCAS days? We're afraid one band teacher, one chorus teacher will quickly burn out, and the students will be stuck with substitutes with no music experience until a replacement is hired, which unfortunately was the case at Rams this past school year for chorus. COVID drastically changed the number of students involved in band and chorus, and that is very evident by the small size of ensembles currently at the high school. However, we have a large number of students currently at Rams involved in both groups who were at Miller during COVID, but these kids needed the musical outlet, and they have persevered through hybrid and remote learning to continue their craft. So we'd like to congratulate them for being able to do that. With quick research today, I found that over a dozen colleges and universities around this country are currently building new performing arts buildings to keep up with the large number of students seeking membership in musical ensembles. I'm afraid that by combining Miller and Rams, you're going to stifle talent. Children are going to give up, and that is not right.
So what would your ideal sort of positions, 1, 2 FTEs at each school, is that where you're?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Don't have them go back and forth.
Thank you. Sean?
My name's Sean Bilodeau. I'm the high school band director, for those of you who don't know me. I'm here today to express my concerns regarding the restructuring of the band program at Rams and Miller. While I understand that costs and enrollment numbers as a whole must be taken into consideration, the solution of eliminating the band position at Miller to roll it into the Rams position does a disservice to our students. The way that all of our performing arts positions are structured, K-12, relies on the idea that a lot of our teaching time is outside of school hours and therefore does not count towards our FTE. On paper, it can appear that we have less classes, less students, and therefore less positions can be called 1.0. The fact is that none of our music classes, K-12, are structurally set up with the best educational practices in mind. Examples include frequency of classes and rehearsals, poor student-to-teacher ratios, which I believe is done in an effort to create fewer sections and therefore make it cheaper. I do recognize and I do believe that part of this decision is to roll these positions into 2 1.0 positions is an attempt to address some of our staffing issues, make the positions more palatable and get good solid people in here who don't want to leave. I do 1,000% recognize this. However, there are several flaws in how I see this decision playing out, both in the decision itself and how our administration and department leadership chose to take action to make this change. Over my 12 years, it'll be 12 years in the fall, working in this district, I have seen the Performing Arts Department get cut over and over and over again. The band position at Miller used to be 0.9, and at Rams, we used to have, at the very beginning of my tenure here, a full 1.0 band and a full 1.0 chorus. Over the years, that has been chipped away so that the same amount of work has been expected to be done by fewer and fewer staff, which has ultimately caused some of our most talented and hardworking staff to leave. I'll be honest, we are quite frankly a joke in the music education community for how we treat our staff and the student outcomes that are a direct result of that. This decision results in a net loss of 0.1 FTE. If you look at how the FTE is spread out now, taking into account that the Miller Band position, when originally posted, when opened 2 years ago, was listed as a 0.6. Even if you take that into account and keep it at a 0.6, you're netting a 0.1 loss in FTE. I am also concerned that when we roll these positions together, that middle school general music is going to take a hit. Our landscape of music education has changed. Middle school general music is a hotbed of potential for students to explore what music means to them outside of, I want to sing in a chorus, I want to play a band instrument. That's not what music education is anymore, nor is it what it should be. It needs to be broader than that. By doing this, as the parents eloquently put, you're spreading people too thin and something's going to take a hit. In my opinion, to properly staff this district in the performing arts, there needs to be 3 1.0 positions at Miller and Placentino, 1 doing general music, 1 doing general music and chorus, and 1 doing general music and band. There needs to be a reinstatement of the 2 full 1.0 positions at Rams, 1 for band and general music, 1 for chorus and general music. And there needs to be 3 1.0 positions at the high school, 1 band and elective, 1 chorus and elective, 1 theater and elective. Now, I realize that that is a pipe dream. I get it. I get it. But the solution as it stands is the equivalent of putting Elmer's glue on a already disintegrating pile of rubble. We need to be advocating for our staff. I share the concerns of our parents that what looks good on paper is going to burn out the good staff that we have and is going to make the staff that we are going to be awesome, I hope, that we hire, not want to stay. Because I see it over and over again. This decision was done without any sort of effort of collaboration with proper stakeholders and was put into motion without an actual full-fledged, flushed-out plan. And that, to me, is unacceptable. I love this town. I love working for this town. I love the fact that we have someone who's stepped up like George Weithman at the middle school. He's done amazing, awesome things in the very short time he's been here. And I refuse to watch him and whoever we hire to get chorus get burned out, frustrated, and ultimately leave. I expect, because I know this decision is going through, I get it. I expect that when concerns are brought forward by students, by families, by department members, that those concerns be taken seriously and acted upon. And that is my statement. Thank you.
So if now we have one hand on, so far anyway, for public comment on the Zoom, just another sort of ask that if you are on the Zoom and want to make public comment, that you raise your hand now. Sarah, you may unmute yourself, or do we have to unmute her?
No, you can unmute, okay. Sarah. You have to put your video on. And
hi, Sarah Hill, this one,
Can you unmute your video as well?
Hi, Sarah Hill, Sarah Hill, 1 Pond Road, Holliston. I have a couple questions for you. There seems to be a lot of misinformation and not accurate information that it has been, put out through social media and just speaking amongst the public. So I just have a couple of questions. Are Holliston Public School salaries compared by all towns in Massachusetts, but by all towns in Middlesex County, all surrounding towns, or all towns of similar district populations? Like, how are you comparing us? Please explain how and why you use this method to compare. I hear the phrase competitive wage, yet I don't understand who you are actually comparing Holliston against. Are we talking about just Metro West, other public school districts? Are you comparing us against, all districts that are similar as far as the district size? Like, how do you come to that number? Or how do you come to that by, that calculation? Then 2, are teachers in Holliston Public Schools currently receiving competitive wages? And if not, then how much less are Holliston teachers receiving amongst the peers that you're comparing us to? What ranking system does the Holliston School Committee believe is a valid source to determine the success of a district? I often hear that, people don't want to use, the various ranking systems like Niche or Boston Magazine to compare districts, but I will say that a lot of towns, when you have a young couple or a young family moving into a new town, the public school system is something that they definitely consider. And, they do look at where public schools are ranked to kind of make those determinations of where they want to live with their family if they are seeking a public education. So I'm curious to know, over the last decade now, Holliston has continuously dropped in our public school ranking. So what, system, what ranking system do you believe as a school committee is a valid source to determine the actual success of the district? So people can understand, how did we go in 2013 when I moved to this community, we were 14 and we've significantly dropped in the ratings over the last decade. So, why is that? How come? What has happened over the last decade that Holliston has continuously dropped in the ranking? And then my last question would it be reasonable to expect that with higher wages, if this override does pass, and additional learning time, that our district will perform at higher levels moving forward? When you're investing, there's always an expectation. So if you invest money, you expect a profit. If you invest time, you expect success or satisfaction. So I'm wondering, what would be the draw for the taxpayers to, approve this override? Giving teachers more money doesn't give the elderly or, low-income voters any incentive to truly vote for an override. What is the added benefit for us as taxpayers to invest into our school system when we've continuously seen rankings drop? As a parent now with a school-age child who's lived in this community for over a decade but has not sent my child to public school until this year, I am very curious to know what the return of this investment is. I'm not necessarily opposed to paying teachers more money, but I want to know how this will help us, amongst the comparable districts that we're competing against. What's the added value? Since we already pay a high amount of tax levy. Thank you so much.
So we don't normally necessarily respond to these things, but given the situation and the fact that discussions of the override are on the agenda, I will address a few. There was a lot there that I may not be able to get to all of them. In the presentation that's on the school department's website under the override, there's a listing of a group of different towns, some surrounding, some sort of comparable versus, in different collaboratives and whatnot. And so that's the general grouping of towns that we look at to compare ourselves. In general, I think that Holliston's schools personally have been relatively competitive, but we've certainly not kept up over time. I think if you look at some data from 12, 14 years ago, we've fallen back relatively slightly in our competitiveness. But one thing I think is very important, because you are talking about return on investment, is a couple things. First of all, of the comparable school districts, we pay less per pupil than any other district that we compare ourselves to. Secondly, this contract is not just about paying teachers, it is about increasing instructional time for students. I think it is very important that we do not lose sight of that when we're talking about money. We are talking about working to increase the education opportunities and time on learning for our students. It is 15 minutes of increased instructional time per day for grades 3 through 12 and 10 minutes for K through 2. That's 540 hours of increased instructional time over a student's K through 12 education, which equates to more than half a year of increased education. So it's not just looking at the dollars and cents that a teacher makes versus another district. It is the fact that we are increasing our opportunities for students. And I think that is incredibly important and something that we absolutely cannot lose sight of when we are looking at that, when we were looking at this contract. And there was one other point, but, the other point I would just simply say is that have been a number of recently settled contracts that are in the same neighborhood as the contracts that we are settling in. So it's Ashland just settled at a 333, Franklin is a 444, just being COLA, and Ashland increased their longevity significantly, and then Wayland was it just at the end 433 with last year. So we have the contract that we are proceeding with is an incredibly good contract for Holliston. It's good for our students, it's good for our teachers, and it's good for the district, and ultimately it will be good for your property values. Are there any more questions from the Zoom, or would you like to?
She's raised her hand again now.
No. Is there any other questions from the Zoom?
I don't see any other hands.
So we have a bunch of presentations that we're going to get into, but Dr. Menard, if you wouldn't mind just discussing the chorus and band, since we have people here that will discuss that.
I think I'm going to jump in and then Jody can add.
Okay, sure.
Well.
However you guys want to do it.
Slide that is part of our coming
Presentation.
So what's interesting here is when I arrived in Holliston, we've had this problem long before I arrived here, that because of the just the class sizes and our enrollment, even before now, we've had these part-time positions in place. So I know that it was mentioned as a 2.1 position overall, in the way we've been working it, and we've had part-time positions at the middle school and part-time positions at the elementary school, and we have had turnover staff as a result. They come in as a new teacher. We've gotten some good people, but then they just settle in and they're leaving. So actually, shortly after my arrival here, actually some of the band and chorus teachers actually talked with myself and the principals. They wanted to meet to discuss proposing a model where we would combine these positions. So, and this was something that taking the band at the elementary and the middle school and combining them, that was an idea that was brought to us as administration, to Mr. Jordan.
And we have multiple meetings, myself and Dr. Pappas, or Dr. Pappas was there also with the superintendent.
They felt that this would actually help strengthen the program because we'd have that alignment. We couldn't manage that at the time because of the fact that we had such diverse schedules that the principals couldn't come up with a plan to make that work. So now that the schedule has changed at Rams, Dr. Jordan and Mr. Keim did come together and said, hey, we still continue to have this turnover with these part-time positions. This would be an opportunity to try to see if we can make it work and have full-time people that travel with the kids and strengthen and grow the program. That ultimately is the plan, to grow the program. I have to say, just my own children were in chorus, band. All three of my children were in different musical programs. And my son, when he was in middle school to high school, the same band teacher followed him from 6 to 12. And they had 130 students in the marching band with tubas that would dance on the field at every football game. And I laughed and applauded every time when I saw the dancing tubas. My son played saxophone. And so there's a lot of research showing that continuity when we have strong people that will remain in the district full time and then would follow up with the students. It does, the whole plan is to grow this program so that when they do get to the high school, I hope that we can add more staff because we have grown this program and we haven't really. I'd love to see a marching band someday. I mean, they add so much to our performance. So that was really, this year, Dr. Jordan and Mr. Keim came to us and said, we do think this is an opportunity now with change, and we've had this constant turnover. Can we make this program work and get full-time positions? And that was the impetus behind this, really to attract, retain, and get them to follow the students up to the middle. And then hopefully, again, bring up to the high school and even grow that program as well. Did you want to add something, Mr. Keim?
Yeah. Dave Keim, principal in Miller. Just conceptually, so you can understand, so we've got our fifth grade and our fourth grade unified arts block. And so that's where the band, like our fifth grade model, our fourth graders are going to go during that music block like our fifth graders do. It's not going to come out of recess. So it's going to be every day the same time that a teacher will be with me at those first two, then go over to middle, and then at the end of the day come back over for the band for me, and the days that they have band over there. It fit into the middle school schedule because they used to do a 6-day schedule and now they do a 5-day schedule. So the students are actually going to get 50 minutes of band instead of the 30 minutes that they would have at a recess. And I was also getting parent complaints that their students weren't signing up for instruments because it was coming out of recess. And we all know they need recess. And so when Dr. Jordan came to me, it seemed to fit. And so not trying to take anything away from the band program. The choral piece at Miller is only one afternoon. We created it last year. And so it's a 4-5, one day after school, just to get kids who are interested in singing after school. And so that position is only one afternoon with me. And so I just wanted to explain it to you, not trying to take anything away.
Thank you, Mr. Kine.
I think that, yes.
So look, I think if anyone else wants to make comments just about their feelings on the music and chorus program, I think it's a very important program to us. Obviously, the administration sort of has within the operational role some of these decisions. So, but I think that it's important to continue these conversations, monitor the new system that's put into place, and continually reevaluate if things aren't working, adjust. I think that's certainly what I can offer today. So, so thank you all. Are we good with public comment? No one else?
I don't see any.
Okay. Thank you guys all everyone for your public comments, and if you guys would like to leave us.
Ready to move on.
Yes.
Mr. Renee is going to bring up a team.
Oh, great. Okay. We're moving on to the Equity Steering Committee.
Sharing says I need to be hosted again. I got kicked out at one point.
Oh, okay. I'll make it again.
Yep.
Should be all set.
Got it.
And just if we haven't, yep.
Is there going to be anything more about the band, or was that it?
That was the only slide we had for tonight.
That was it.
If you want to send your questions, we can make sure that we get those addressed, or at least responded to. Yep.
So like follow up with an email, not specific, mine's about the musical theater one, so that's
Okay.
a totally different thing. I can email you.
Please.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. All right. Let's get some energy back into the room, right? It's been a little bit of time. I know people have been sitting, but we are really excited to share with you our recommendations from the Equity Audit Steering Committee. But before I kind of jump into things, I wanted to take an opportunity just to share with you who's here with me today. So with that, if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name is Karim Portocarrero Heister. I'm a world language teacher in the high school.
Dave Kine, Principal, Miller School.
Okay, I have a loud voice. Chinmaya Gogineni, my son goes to San Placentino, and I'm also part of diverse Holliston in the town.
Thank you. As I begin, I kind of just want to paint a picture. If you look at that sunny, futuristic day, we had our last meeting this Monday, right? And this Monday was a warm day, beautiful, lacrosse was happening in the field, and I was like, nobody's coming today, right? Like, I just made that assumption. High school students had graduated, students were enjoying their day, and in walked 2 high school students, super excited to be there. They blew me away, they blew my assumptions away. We had, I think, 9 people in the room, right, for our last meeting. And this last meeting was about tweaking our recommendations that we're going to share today, which really tells me about the passion that people engage with this work. And before I go, I'll just share, in the 3 years I've been here, this has been probably one of the happiest things I've been a part of. I leave at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whenever that wraps up, energized. Sometimes more energized than I am at 4 o'clock, because you're in a room with people who are really wrestling with this concept of equity, knowing that there's no easy solutions, but knowing that you have to enter the space with a creativity to kind of see a better tomorrow. So that's the beginning of our presentation. Freezing? I don't know. There it goes.
Are you in presentation mode?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, so I wanted to share some guiding questions for anyone listening at home, for us listening here today. When I asked this question to the room on Monday, and I said, if we live up to the recommendations we're sharing today, will the Holliston Public Schools be more equitable than where we are today? And the answer was resounding yes. I asked another question. Have we created structures and processes that move us closer to equity and that support the sustainability of our recommendations? One thing is to make recommendations, but another thing is, are we building structures that can live past a year? And the answer was yes. And then here's the hope, right? There is no way that in 20 to 30 minutes I can capture everything we talked about in successions, that I can do any justice to the conversations, to recommendations. But my hope is that those watching, those in the room, walk away with just two feelings. One is, this is doable. And the other is, I'm excited for what's next. That's my goal for today, right? Because I also know that we have to establish other opportunities to share this with the community past a 8:30 o'clock meeting, right, on a Thursday night. So there's going to be more engagement about what we do today, but that's the hope as we walk in today. So with that, we'll continue moving.
Okay, so I want to present you the committee participants. First of all, we were 4 students, 4 parents, 4 educators, 1 building administrator, 1 office administrator, and 2 people from the community, from the Holliston Youth and Family, and SEPAC. So the Equity Audit Steering Committee has a diverse representations. This was intentionally composed to include members from diverse backgrounds, identity, and lived experiences. We have also members from the Black, Indigenous people of color, LGBTQ+, and students with special education needs, and also a student from all range of ages and backgrounds. When we did the committee, what we try to, what we earn and we understand and what we have, what we're going to present is that we ensure the diverse range of perspective of the community, and we are amplifying the voices of those who usually are not successful or they don't feel a sense of belonging. The phases of our work. So we started in January at the beginning of this year, and today we're presenting the first phase, phase 1, and today we're providing the recommendation. So this recommendation is today, and there's a journey for this that we're hoping to implement during the year 24 and 25 and beyond. The second phase is to integrate the implementation per se. The District of Holliston will carefully integrate purposely that the Equity Audit Steering Committee's recommendation, adapting and refining the recommendation to ensure effective implementation within the unique context of Holliston Public School. And the third phase is to embed in the school culture, to become a culturally responsive school. And this goes beyond, and this will be purposely, so beyond the 25 and 26 school year, we'll use this recommendation for hiring purposes, support, and grow as a district. Sorry that English is not my first language.
You did great.
Thank you.
So some of the district recommendations. There's a lot of, so one of the things we did purposely is some of the slides we expanded because we felt that that was something people wanted to know. And then some of the other pieces are in here, which will be available on the website that people can jump into and actually read more in depth. So some of the things that came out, one of the first recommendations is we got to create a structure and a process. So equally, Monday evening when we met at 7:30, 8 o'clock, people were like, we're going to continue this, right? And one of the things, recommendation is that this be a structure that continues. That we, as a, moving away from the equity audit to a Holliston Public Schools Equity Committee, continue to meet to provide feedback and support for the school district. And at the same time, I wouldn't, the word's not accountability, but be able to offer advice, suggestions around ways to continue to move this work. Because in the room will be students, parents, educators, and administrators. So equally, there'll be voices in the space to hear about how are the recommendations really coming out. Incorporate. The second recommendation is that our recommendation should be incorporated into the strategic plan for next year. That's often something that happens in the summer. So oftentimes administrators meet in the summer. We think about where we left and we kind of recreate our new objectives for the year. One of the suggestions is for these recommendations to land in within those recommendations for the strategic plan, but also every fall, early fall, our schools write school improvement plans. And we're also asking for these recommendations to find their way within those school improvement plans. And incorporate it in a way that isn't just embedded that it disappears, but name it, right? Name the work that is happening within our strategic plan and within our schools in a way that's embedded with what's happening within the school. The third one is create a multi-year PD plan. One of the things that often happens when we think about equity is that sometimes in districts we'll have siloed PD, right? So today we're going to go to professional development focused on bias. And then we never talk about that again. Or we're going to talk about math instruction, and we're going to talk about math and cultural relevancy, and then we never talk about that again. So one of the pieces is, could we create a multi-year plan, which we've actually started working on, where we can name the pieces from the recommendations that are embedded within the work, but as part of the work, not seen as something outside of the work. This should be part of the work. So we want to see a multi-year plan where our recommendations are articulated within that. So the fourth recommendation across the district was we want to create a proactive protocol, one that the committee recommends creating a responding to incidents of bias protocol. We have a bullying a policy and a bullying protocol. We also want to create one for responding to incidents of bias. But we also wanted to name it from the preventative side and from the responsive side. So what are we as a district doing to prevent incidents of bias from happening? This will never be a perfect goal, but our goal should always be to reduce the likelihood that incidents of bias occur within our schools. But also, how are we going to respond to those when they happen? That plan should have clear articulation around how we're going to communicate to those stakeholders that were impacted, how do we communicate to the school community, and at what points at times do we need to communicate to the greater Holliston community, depending on what occurred. Outlining how we're making decisions about how we engage with whatever the incident may have occurred, and then articulating very clearly what's happening at each of our schools that sets up a preventative space for this to happen. And then the last part to that is making sure that we create community education. It would make no sense for us to create a protocol that our community doesn't know about, doesn't know how to engage, and equally it doesn't know how to access those supports when necessary. That make sense? So the next goal is around a comprehensive recruitment and retention plan. Oh, can we pass this down over to
Thank you, Gerald. I'll start by reiterating something that the first slide says. Equity is not a destination. So I hope we all understand this is work that's never going to be done. We need to continuously work on making those changes. So with that background, and also I'd like to add some additional color on like the surveys that have been done in the Holliston town multiple times, and a general survey of all the parents that did send their kids to the Holliston public system. This has been one of the biggest things that they've highlighted that the school system needs to work on, which is a comprehensive recruiting and retention plan that's representative in diversity. One only needs to look at our current teacher population to see we're failing in that. I'll add an additional fact that I came to know recently. One of the two diverse folks in the visibly diverse folks in the force is actually their contract is not being renewed, which means we've lost 50% of the diverse representation in the school system. This is something to look at. Like, not only are we failing to attract diverse teachers into our workforce, we're actually losing the ones we actually managed to get for whatever reason. So why is that so important? One only needs to look at our middle school and elementary school and look at how the classes are populated today. The demographics are changing. These kids need to see leaders, teachers who look like them, who talk like them, who feel like them. That's the most important part for them to see, look up to leadership. The other aspect is it's not only for the diverse kids, right? Like, it's for all the other kids as well that will tomorrow graduate into a workforce that looks a lot diverse than what Holliston looks like today. They need to understand how that works. They need to know what it means to work across those visible differences. And that's the most important aspect. And I think the only way to teach them to do that is to have leaders who model that behavior in schools. And how do we do that? Like, we are still, that's the piece that we need to focus on, is how do we put in structured processes that enable recruitment. We need to think creatively and innovatively, because whatever we've been trying so far, we've been failing. That's visible in like how many diverse teachers we've been able to recruit. And that's the reality. I'm not saying it to throw it back in somebody's face. I'm just observing facts. So we need to relook at our process and see what we can do differently, what we can do creatively to attract teachers. So that's something I think that really, really needs to change. And I think that's probably what the vision of a colleague program was focused at, is to help both existing teachers as well as incoming teachers to feel attracted towards what would be a very supportive and conducive environment for them to come in, succeed, and respond to the community as well. Yeah.
I'm gonna grab the mic and start riffing. I just wanted to add one piece to that. One of the pieces that two of our community members added to this Monday night was, why Holliston? Like, let's be clear when we start to recruit, and let's intently say, why is Holliston the place you need to be? Right? So part of creating this recruitment and retention plan isn't just a plan of like, make sure we all are using, inclusive language during, interviews, et cetera. Yeah, that too. But also, why Holliston? Why should you pick Holliston over any other community, right? We need to name that and be clear about that. And the second thing is, and one of our partners mentioned this, was, I just wanted to make clear for everybody in the room and for this, when we mean diversity, we're not just talking about the color of our skin. We're talking about language. We're talking about LGBTQ+. We're talking about neurodiversity. We're talking about low income. We're talking about the whole plethora of lived experiences that are within our school. So that's the other piece that I want to expand on, is that when we talk about this is for that, right? How do we diversify who our kids see across the spectrum of diversity in our schools?
The next part is on student services. And, building a student services leadership group, and we've begun to do that. We've got Jess Beatty, Student Services Director for the district, and then our SSAs, our school psychs, the teachers in our continuums, our basis, our pathways, our networks, are meeting to see, are there alternate ways that we could pull out students when we need to, instead of just doing it during the world language time. Because there isn't, you talked about time on learning and adding time to the day. There's only so many places you can give services to students so that they're not coming out of the core instruction in the classroom. classroom. And what has been a practice is coming out of the world language. So we need to take a look at that, and are there different places that we could do that? The other thing is student voice and stakeholder feedback. So you form this student services leadership group, but let's talk to the kids who are going through on IEPs and survey them. How's it working for you? Get their feedback, but also get the feedback of the parents whose students are going through this. And then we triangulate that data, and we've got a better, we're better informed. We have better data to look at how we're servicing kids. And you've heard me talk about this in February. You heard me talk about this with our school improvement plan, but our chronic attendance. So back in 2018 and 2019, I bet we were about at 5%. We're up to 10 plus now in students being absent. So let's take a picture of Miller, 600 kids. That's 60 kids. And if we look at chronically absent, that's 18 or more days. And so we are bordering that 10. We actually this week just saw a 9 for the first time all year, because we've been sending this home to parents. We've been sending this home to teachers, that we do want to focus on students being in school. And that has a huge impact on student learning.
And just to add to that piece, so I brought these goals to Jess Beatty, and I said, hey, what are your thoughts about these? And she was super pumped. She loved them. And she was really excited about creating a cohort of students that she could just sit with and say, tell me what's working, what's not working. Because oftentimes as adults, we think we're creating programs that this is going to be awesome, this is going to be so beneficial, and the kid might look at it and be like, this isn't working for me, right? So she's really excited about creating, especially at the secondary level, a feedback group that she can meet with to get feedback about how our services are being felt, what's working, what's not, and then be able to create change for that. And then from that, she also was like, I want to feedback my stakeholders, right? The parents of those students who are receiving services, what are their experience and how to improve that as well. So she was really excited about this.
So the next part I have is improving transitions. I was floored by the first one, Montessori to 5th grade. And I was like, boy, we could have taken care of this long time ago if I realized what was going on. So seeing this information, we're actually going to interview current 5th grade Montessori students to hear about their experience and hear about their transition. We're also going to try to next week get them to talk to current 4th grade Montessori students to give them a little heads up of how that transition is going to happen, separate from just the 4th grade going into a 5th grade classroom. This is something that, actionable we can do right now to take a look at this. Transitions are always tough, but we can always do better. We can always get feedback, that 2nd to 3rd, the learning to read to reading to learn. And we're finding that we're having more and more students still needing to learn to read. And so it's how do we build that gap between the two schools? How do we build it from 5th grade to 6th grade? 8th grade to 9th grade. And then the last part on this is how do we transition kids into the world? Not just college, but some students are going into the workforce right out of high school. How do we transition our 22-year-olds who have been in our program till 22? How do we work with the parents and make sure they're going where they need to go?
Yeah. He's looking at me because I'm sure you have something to say here. But this was another question that was asked yesterday, Monday. It feels like yesterday. These things are so lofty. How will we get it done? Mm-hmm. Principal Keim just shared how we start to do the work. From a recommendation, at the school level, they're now interviewing students to create a different way we can transition kids to improve the experience of kids. That's how change starts to happen, right? That's the reality of the work. There's no perfect solution. But that's how it works. By highlighting something, by saying, hey, something here needs to kind of be moved, there's something we got to pay attention to, it now creates the ability for people to stop and say, what could we do differently? And then, to be honest, I could feel the passion from them, right? Saying, we're going to interview kids right before we go, right? So I just wanted to share that because I think, and I always want to put in perspective, we can move this work. But part of how we move it is by stopping and taking a look at where we're at and then starting to just take action to move some of the work.
And then obviously I got this one, the elementary recommendations. So, you know, at the elementary level, we're a big school. And so combining both Placentino and Miller and looking at how we're communicating early, and I know Dr. Slaney has started this already because she's read this report when they did their kindergarten and preschool nights early in the spring. So how do we explain to parents the experience, and how do we do it in different languages so that all people know, you know, what the French immersion program is like, or the Montessori program is like, and what the path is going to be like going all the way up. Okay, Montessori ends at grade 4. You know, and so grade 4, they are going to transition in grade 5. Or do they know at Miller, you know, you're going to stop doing French all day long and you're going to have a half day in English, half day in French, and what that looks like and what that experience. But how can we do a better job in selling those and letting people know what those are looking like? And looking at our enrollment trends in these programs. You know, do we have people dropping out of these programs that, and why is that? You know, I could, you know, give you a guess, but I want to look at the data and I want to find out, you know, from interviewing or surveying people why this is happening.
No suggestion, no comment.
Nothing?
No,
I did all right there?
You did great. You're all doing great. So we're going to move on to secondary. And one of the things that I meant to mention earlier, so our originally equity audit report had 48 recommendations. Well, we're moving forward as recommendations, we're at 20. And in those 20, even in the 20, we left things out. But we also felt a duty to be able to say, we're not going to be able to move things if we're aiming for 1,000 things. We have to start being more succinct about what we do. And part of what we do is also seeing that each one impacts another. There's not a lot of recommendations you're going to see that are completely isolated by themselves. If we move one work, it starts to impact other pieces as well. So we're next moving to secondary recommendations. So one of those recommendations is around vision of a graduate. Now, you've heard vision of a graduate, but one of the things when we talk to students, and the report said it as well, is that it's important for students to feel that they fully can understand and be able to articulate what the vision of a graduate means to them. And when we were in the room and we were talking with some of the students were like, yeah, we kind of talk about it, but like it's not as meaningful as it could be in my life. So we need to make that meaningful. We need to make it real, and not just real for necessarily just even the students who are in the room, but consider, you know, how is a vision of graduate real for those students who speak multiple languages, for those students who are, you know, have neurodiversity who are neurodiverse, for students who have different learning profiles. How does a vision of graduate speak to them? Right, so that was a recommendation. Another recommendation is continue the curriculum reviews. Right, curriculum reviews are a necessary piece towards equity. What it means is we always need people reviewing the curriculum that we have in front of our students every day to make sure it's what we want and it's in line with what research tells us is the best practice for students to be learning. But when doing the curriculum reviews, we recommend a couple things. One is make sure that in that piece you're providing education for the community to understand what are the changes we're making, right? Another piece is to ensure that we can, when making changes to curriculum, we're providing ways to assess how are those changes going. A lot of our recommendations for secondary are going to go to structure. And what we mean is that as we shift things or as we think about changes for the secondary level, we have to create structures to make sure that whatever changes we believe are happening, they're happening, and if not, that we can course correct at any time for that. So ensuring equitable access and curriculum decisions. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to just address, you know, at the beginning is that there's been plenty of conversation this year, and I think it may have even started last year, about leveling honors AP courses. And at times people were turning to say like, well, what's the equities equity audits, steering committee's decision on this. And the reality is we're a team of 4 students, 4 educators, 4 parents, stakeholders. We're not the experts to make decisions, but here's what I believe we are the experts are. Suggestions for questions that need to be answered and structures that need to be put in place before changes are made. So part of our recommendation is, and if you could see this piece here, once we make this online, you'll be able to click on this link, but we want to create an equity-minded decision-making checklist, and here's what it would mean. Hopefully it shows it. Okay. It's a lot of questions, but some of the questions that I posed to the group, for instance, are, what do you want this leveling honors or AP study group to consider? And the P or the S or the E are the hat that person was wearing, right? They were asking these questions as a parent or as an educator, right? Or as a student. And I'll just read one example. What concrete steps will be taken to address any potential implicit bias in recommendations and placement processes for leveled classes and ensuring equitable access to honors and AP courses? That's a great question, right? What do we have in place to make sure that there's no bias in place as to how kids get recommended? We were talking to a student who was in our equity audit steering committee who said, I wish I would have recommended earlier. This student was a senior and was taking 4 AP courses. That's insane. That's a lot. And when I asked, did you have the chance to take any earlier? He said, I probably did, but no one really recommended me to do that. And that to me just provided an opportunity of something we could do differently, right? That's not a criticism of the structure. It's an opportunity for us to do something differently. So part of our, going back to this, part of our recommendation is from these questions, we're going to create a checklist that we're hoping curriculum review teams, any teams that are looking at decisions that impact across a school, across a grade span, have to go through answering some questions for themselves before they make a decision, such as, are there possible unintended impacts that could happen as a result of this decision? What's the current enrollment of any of these courses currently? Do students who want to take this class, do they have the possibility to take it? And are there scaffolds and supports built in place so they can succeed in that? Are we encouraging students from across all diverse pieces we talk to take those leveled courses? Do parents and students understand how they can advocate for themselves if they'd like to? This is part of structures and processes that we believe need to be in place for decisions to be made. So our recommendation as a Equity Audit Steering Committee is to create a structure where teams are answering these questions. And in all honesty, when they come in front of a school committee or they come in front of any committee to share their recommendations, that they answer these questions. Our data says what? We've looked at possible unintended consequences, and here's what we're putting in place. Here's how we're going to support students in this new, wherever we're going with this. Equity calls for that, right? Equity doesn't call for us to be able to tell people exactly what the decision is, because that doesn't change the system. What changes the system is putting things in place that create a space where people ask those questions. So that's our recommendation for this piece, is to create that structure that helps those teams make decisions that are informed. This goes connected to that is the when and the who. Recommendation number 4 speaks about for schools to kind of think about when in a school year they might, for instance, I know there's been conversation at 8th grade, like algebra, right? And one of the things that we're asking is for, as decisions are made, is people to be able to answer, when would this happen and who might be positively impacted, and are there anybody who might be negatively impacted by this decision? Right? That has to be if we're going to live through this concept of equity, that has to be the core of questions we start to ask and answer in a transparent way. And know that there probably will be no perfect answer, but that we're being transparent about the informed decision we made. Communicate options and alternatives. And with this, I'll just share a piece. When we first had the report of the equity audit representation, we heard from, I think, an educator who said at the high school, we have options for students who may not have been recommended to like override that and get into that class. And then we had a parent say, my child wasn't allowed to go into a class and I didn't know that was an option. That right there is an example of inequity. Although we may have a policy or a practice in place, if our families and our students don't know how to access that, if we're not living up to that, then we can't call that equity, right? We have to definitely call it an opportunity gap. And so part of recommendation number 5 is to ensure that we're communicating and our families and our students know how to access all options and know how to advocate for whatever our policies and practices are, right? Whatever our practices and practices are, they know how to access them when necessary. And number 6 goes back to what we were asking for the first part, is make transparent, equity-minded decisions, right? So utilizing those questions that are focused on equity, are we being transparent? And explaining to the school committee, explaining to the larger community why we made this decision, what data we looked at, how we made it, the decision, and what safeguards are we putting in place for any students who might be impacted in a way that we did not see that happening. There are, from this piece, there are 3 other goals in the secondary, but I'm not listing them, and here's why. They're in the report that will be available online, because they can only come to fruition once we make a decision on what the high school schedule will be, because they're directly connected to high school schedule, such as ensuring the students don't have to make choices on courses they take and have to not take art or music in order to get another piece of within their structure, right? We've heard from students that that's a struggle, but until the high school makes a decision on where they're going to go with their schedule, although we've made the recommendations, it doesn't make sense to bring it up in this space. So next steps for this group. I've already named it, that we're going to move on. We're no longer the Equity Audit Steering Committee. We're now just the Holliston Public Schools Equity Steering Committee, right? This is going to be part of what we do and what we live. We're asking that in pushing for this work to be embedded in our plans and named. Sometimes embedded can disappear, right? Such as we support all students, right? That's a way where it's a blanket statement. But if a recommendation is we support our students and we're building scaffolds to make sure no students are left behind, and we're looking at data yearly to make sure that our students all have equal access to that, that's a really different statement, right? So we wanted to make sure they're named. And the last piece is we want to make sure that as we move forward and start to embed these, that we create measurables. And then we celebrate progress, right? I've already heard several things in our presentation that we can celebrate. We're talking to students at Montessori. We've already had changes at Placentino. We're going to be creating different hiring plans, right? Like our SSD director is excited about talking to students. That's already change already happening. So we also want to figure out ways to celebrate the progress, not only that has been happening, but the progress we see will be happening. And with that, I'll say thank you to the 3 people here who are here till 9 o'clock and gave were with me for 6 months, right? And Sarah as well. And then I guess I would open up to questions.
So the group that you are envisioning going forward, because I do, Jim, I do recognize, this is, or I think this is the beginning, right? Or the start. It's a continuing process, and so we appreciate you guys coming here to give an interim update, just given all the work that's been going on. So, but is the group that will be continuing, is that the same, or are you going to be looking for?
So we're going to have to look for some, because some of our students are graduating,
Sure.
right? They're moving on.
There you go.
Some of our students are graduating. And once we kind of set the schedule for next year, it's funny. So I was like, what if we meet quarterly? And once again, right, I assumed wrong. The students were like, I think we should do monthly. I was not thinking parents would be able to do, right, like be able to juggle that, or teachers, and people are that passionate about the work. So I don't know if monthly, and I think we got it maybe every other month, but definitely I think a lot of the people who are part of it want to continue, and we're also going to expand based on the recommendations, because there might be other voices that need to kind of come into the room based on where we're going.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yeah, please.
So just to follow up on that, Dan, thank you for asking the question, because I don't think this is a one-way street where we're going to make recommendations and like everybody else follows it. I think this is where we look to you folks in the school committee, administrative leadership, everybody, principals. We all need to get together and get creative, because whatever we've been doing doesn't seem to be hitting the mark. So how can we improve, right? Like, this is not a criticism or personal attack against what has not worked. We know what that is. We need to improve on a daily basis. So the challenge before the school committee, the administrative leadership, this committee, is to collectively bring improvement. I think Jariel was saying, how can we be better tomorrow than today, right? Like, that's going to be the continuous pursuit. and it's not a one-time thing. We do these 10 things and then we're in the top 10 school rankings or whatever, right? Like it's about how we stack year upon year of successful graduates who have great things to say about the Holliston public school system. And I think the return on investment is better town, better citizens, and better real estate prices. Apparently, that speaks to some people. So either way, it works for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you mentioned is sort of the diversity or vision of a colleague. I think and you mentioned the diversity of our staff, and I'd love to see some recommendations on how to sort of do that, I guess, because it's not easy, right? Because in some ways you put out applications and you put out job recs and you get who you get. So how do you go about doing that? How do we attract those people? So suggestions on that would be.
I don't
know. It doesn't need to be tonight. I'm just saying,
yeah, I can rip one just now, just because I've thought about it a lot. I think just looking at the class, right, like that will change the perception that's seen outside of Holliston, where it's like a predominantly white town and like people are looking, feeling like one way. Just show them a different side of the school system. The students will speak louder than anything we can tell them, right? Just look at the classes, Miller and San Placentino and Robert Miller and Rams, all the middle school and the 2 elementary schools. If you look at the class demographics, that'll speak to a lot of teachers that might want to come and teach here. It counters everything else that's out there that people are consuming about Holliston, and that's the challenge, right? Like, so we teach that speaks to a teacher more than anything else. I think that's something that we can do tomorrow, and have these students make a video. There are very many creative marketing ways we can get done on that front. That's just one quick one. I'm sure we can do a lot.
So Jerry, when you look at the next incarnation of this group going into next year, are you thinking about things like creating SMART goals where you can say these are action steps so we can actually see the work? Because it's very broad. It's a broad brush right now, but to narrow even those down into these are the action steps we're going to take in this next year and have those as part of our goals. Is it too lofty to ask for things like that in the fall to start like working on some of those things?
I think some of these things 100% SMART goals, and some of the things are actions that need to be taken.
Yeah.
Such as create a plan, roll it out. The SMART goals might be to start to measure the impact of those, right? So SMART goals might be attached to action steps that need to happen, but as we say in kind of like the equity world, if it's not measured, it didn't happen. So we 100% need to create SMART goals for that. And I just wanted to say to the hiring piece, research tells us that how do you retain and recruit is by living this work. So if we create a community where this is alive and well, people want to come here because this isn't alive and well everywhere, right? So this becomes part of our why, is living this. And I forgot to mention that part of one of the goals, there's homework for all of us. And what we mean is part of the recommendations was for the school committee and the school administrators from central office and our schools to engage in some professional development together around equity and the concept of equity. So what I mean is, as we start to move forward and when we talk about the work, we're all on the same page about what we mean, what we talk about, how we define it, and how we're going to name the work as we head into the future, especially as there's been turnover in our school committee. We thought it'd be a great time, and the recommendation was for all of us to be aligned as we head into next school year. So I didn't name that, but that is another recommendation for us to do that work together.
So as you were talking, we've been talking about trying to do workshops over the summer. We didn't get to do any last summer, but that's something that Jerry and I, in our Ready work with the state, he and I have been doing the racial equity, diversity, inclusion work with Darnisa, Anita Jackson, and Lee Tamel. And I actually would, providing you're willing and able to do it with us, we'd love to try to put together a workshop based on equity. And we're trying to bring Darnisa in as the person. I've already reached out to her to see her availability, but I also don't want to presume that you're going to be able to do it. But I think it would be a great opportunity for us to do a workshop together.
Sure, yeah, we'll talk about some dates.
I know it's a late night, but can I ask for indulgence from the school committee and the leadership sitting across? If you can highlight one thing that spoke to you in the presentation today that you want to think about going forward. I would like to hear more. Yep, at least one. If you have more, I'd love to hear more.
You go ahead.
We'll go down the line.
Apparently, Sarah, you're sitting in the...
Yeah, oh, no, yeah. You go.
Okay, I'll go first. Something important was mentioned was around, I think you compared bullying to bias and how we, communicate that and call that out. I think one area where we could work stronger and how we talk about embed is unconscious bias. Like, how do we not call that out negatively, but educate, right? How do we embed that in our education system? I think it's important we don't lose sight of that, because, our youth are going to say things, we say things, and we don't always catch on to that. I think doing so in a positive way can drive a change in that education, in that child, for the future state. It doesn't always need to be a negative connotation. The second thing is I love the idea about it's a journey, not a destination. This isn't a checkbox. So how we continue this conversation, I love the idea of a workshop, would absolutely be involved in attending. And then three things. Why Holliston? That really spoke to me, because we need to improve as a town to become more diverse. It doesn't always equal, but if our town is perceived as not high end, not high end in terms of income or anything, but not the top of the mountain, you're not going to get interest, or you're going to lose interest where you could gain it. So I think it's important we focus as a town to be the strongest that we can. I'm good there.
I just had a question. So you mentioned the faculty itself is not very diverse. Do you think that's because Holliston isn't attractive to people from diverse backgrounds, or because for whatever reason they're just not applying, or?
Yeah. So I would say this is a multifaceted question, and we probably have to work in the workshop, but here's a couple things. In education, I've always been one of the only people of color in the room, and that's past Holliston. One of the only people who spoke multiple languages, and that's past Holliston. So this is a reality of the field. But what I think districts are being called to do is, in the pool of diversity, bigger than just race and language, neurodiversity, LGBTQ+, people who have experiences around low income, etc. How are we recruiting? And when I say recruiting, it's not as simple as like we sent out a flyer, right? I've seen the schools engage and then build partnerships with schools and go directly talk to the kids before they graduate. Because when you're a person, oftentimes of color, you're picked up like this. As a person in the field of education as Latino and bilingual, I've never not had offers, because there's such a lack of it. So if we want to think about how we diversify and retain, we need to think about how we recruit differently. The why Holliston, right? So like when they come here, they're like, I need to be here. But also, how do we retain? Because the other piece is, when we look at retention of diverse staff, there's a much higher leaving the field of education rate than oftentimes with their peer white colleagues. And that's true in administration as well, right? So there's a higher rate of people who leave the field in frustration, or don't feel included or part of the community, right? So part of the work, and that's why we labeled it recruitment, retention, process, is that if you only invest in recruitment and you do nothing in retention, it's like throwing the money out the window, right? Because you're doing here and they're not going to stay. We need to invest in both equally with the same effort.
Just add to, this is something that's been identified as a state problem, right? This is a huge problem. The licensure process is really known to be affecting our people of color more so. If they don't pass the test the first time, a lot of times what the data has shown that our people of color at the state level are not taking it a second time. Financially, sometimes it's a challenge, and people are giving up. It's not an equitable test. The state is doing something to address that, but the numbers of people coming from higher ed into this field is a real problem and a frustration. So we're competing with other towns that are trying to do the same thing. We are logistically challenged with public transportation. There's so many things. Gerald and I have attended multiple diverse job fairs and try to recruit that way. We're fighting against the tide. I do think your best bang for your buck is to try to bring students from within and bring them into the field, and that would require funding, obviously, to try to create a program where our kids could then be brought back and give back to the community, but helping to fund their education in this field. So, I mean, that's probably your best option of bringing students forward to the field, because we're struggling like every district in this area.
And I would say we haven't had a plan.
Yeah.
Right? So like part of how we begin this work is by saying like, let's create a plan how we do the work. Without a plan, we're just doing things, right? So part of like the beginning of how we do that is by actually having a plan of how we're going to do it and then living up to it.
I also think the way you created the equity audit group was very intentional, and you were really looking to kind of represent many people from different backgrounds. I think there was a lot of overlap. You know, some of us had multiple
hats.
Yeah, hats. But also the way you ran the group, where we didn't really talk about, but we had very clear norms that I think made everyone feel welcome and valued, and their voices, they were comfortable sharing their own voices. And it was kind of a model, I think, for how to do this work kind of outside of this little room where it's a smaller group. So I think there's a lot of ways to be intentional about creating that culture and that environment.
Can I piggyback on that? The first meeting we met, and this is just one snippet, and then we'll go back to the lineup. As I walked into the room, there was Spanish, Latin music playing, and I looked around the room, and there were people visibly different looking, and when we looked at the recruitment process, like Dariel was sharing with us all how he was going to build it up, and it showed intention that there was going to be representation from various different visible and invisible diverse backgrounds, which showed like that's the intention, right? Like it's a small change that was made to the process that spoke and went a long distance. It didn't cost him any money to do either the radiation of the process that he's approaching, or to play the music, but like that set the tone for how we were going to do the work together. It felt light, it felt different, it was nice, and then that brought us all together. I think that's something that we can all learn from. But yeah, maybe, Joe, I don't know if you have any reflections beyond the question.
Yeah, I had another question. So you mentioned the creating a responding to incidents of bias protocol. How has that looked in other districts?
Yeah, so how has it looked? Other districts have protocols.
And what do they look like?
So oftentimes the way it looks like is they describe what an incident of bias is. They often describe, I'm trying to go back to it, they often describe their communication tree. So in other words, like if something happens at recess with the four of us, the communication tree might be the four of us, families get, reach out to. If it happens in the classroom, you reach out to the families of the classroom. If it happens in the school, like almost a tree to think about how to communicate. Because what has happened when we first arrived, when incidents occurred, we had multiple different ways of like, who do we communicate? And do we blast it out to everybody, or do we blast it out to communication is really key in that piece. They're also really clear on what are the interventions that could occur, both educationally and at times consequentially as well, and have ways and create ways where students can come forward and come forward and report an incident of bias. So they have like, how do you report, how do we communicate, what is an incident of bias, what are our options, and how do we measure it in the future?
Yeah, so I grew up in East Boston and Lynn, so this is all very new to me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Where do I start? I'm continually concerned about the chronic attendance issues and who and when are the students that are impacted by that. And getting the messaging to families how critical it is that their students are in school every day. I'm kind of gobsmacked by that a little bit. I'm curious to learn more about the wraparound services that you're considering for students. Maybe that's outside of the classroom. I mean, we're talking about how we only have so much time during the day. How do we, what kind of resources do we need to put towards wraparound services maybe happen outside of the school day?
Yep.
And then your whole discussion around the when and the who in terms of like leveling, because we're having a lot of robust discussion about that and how equity is in that piece. So lots to reflect upon.
Yeah, and I guess the disadvantage of going fifth year is that many of my points were hit, but one thing that did strike me on, I think it's around slide 18, the communicate options, access, and alternatives to all stakeholders under your secondary recommendations 4 through 6. I just would like to know a little bit more about what you would do differently than what's being done now, right? And so, like, my understanding now is that there's communication and conversations that guidance has. They often have meetings with the students, that the principal kind of does a presentation that for the families that attend, they're part of that. And the students are also talked to in terms of what the process is. There's an email about it with the different procedures, and I completely understand the distribution of that in different languages. But what else can be done to better communicate that? Because I just feel like that's a piece that we shouldn't be waiting on. I mean, we'll be back here in just a few months with kids starting classes again. So it's like I guess, what were some of your specific suggestions on improving communication beyond what's going on now?
What I would say to that, and it's kind of like a non-answer, is that our goal and our ask was to move up the recommendations we feel we need to focus on and then bring them forward. Mm-hmm. So all the recommendations here weren't for the team to answer. The recommendations here were for us to bring them forward and say, hey, district, not hey, district in a mean way, but like, hey, district, hey, school, hey, stakeholders, hey, school committee. We believe we need to answer this question. We need to create that piece. So in all these recommendations, we didn't answer exactly how to do them. What we did do is say, out of the 48, these are the ones that we all need to be wrestling with and come up with answers as a committee.
Right.
So it could be a SMART goal in the fall to have those answers, but we don't have those yet.
I have a suggestion.
Thank you.
Thinking creatively. I know you folks do office hours at Coffee Haven. It's an open office hour. Why not have focused office hours that say, today let's talk about X, Y, Z. Trust me, the community will show up. When there are focused, pointed questions, there is interest and ability to consume. A lot of parents will show up, but like when you have it open-ended, it doesn't bubble up on the priority list for them because, and I'm not your typical representation for a diverse background person because I have a safe job. I can take time off from work and show up for coffee hour at Coffee Haven or whatever. That's not your typical underrepresented, underserved population. They're working 2, probably 3 jobs, trying to just make ends meet. They can't make time to come. But if you tell them this is the topic we're talking about, now that makes it like a priority call for them, and like that creates interest in the community to show up. Mm-hmm. I think that's how we can drive focused conversation, as opposed to, again, the same thing, right? It's a blurry arbit picture of like everything you want to talk about, we're here. Instead, you're saying like, today we're going to talk about X, Y, Z. Knock off the list of things that we want to talk about, and have more than one session, right? Like, so we can get creative with office hours in different times, different locations. I know it imposes more work for you folks, but that's, if we want the community to engage, that's how we get it going. Like, that's something that you can think of. That's just one of, I'm sure we can come up with many creative ways to solve for that.
So that's a good opportunity to plug the office hours that we have coming up that are focused and targeted on special town meeting. And they're this Saturday at 8 o'clock from 9 to 10 at Coffee Haven. Okay. And then Wednesday, the 12th, from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the library. So we try to vary the times and dates a bit, and they're focused on, on the special town meeting. Though obviously, if people want to ask other questions, they can. But that's interesting. It's an interesting thing if you focus. It's a good idea. You good?
And I guess my only other, going back to the part about pullouts being during world language, I think in some of the schools, I thought we had also moved to a program where we had almost like a designated block.
We do have a WIN block.
A WIN block,
And so
thank you.
Some of the kids will.
Okay.
Those students also need that intense reading instruction. They also need intense multilingual language instruction. And so, there are pieces of that. And so, yes, we are using that. We're using every bit of the day.
Okay, and is that similar then also with Rams Block at Adams? Well, we can follow up and ask about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intent of it is, with that Student Services Leadership Group, is equally to engage and study across all of our schools what's happening where and how. Right. I think the acknowledgement is that there are times where kids might get pulled in things that could be not disadvantageous, would be the negative, I guess, to their journey, and they want to try to reduce that, right? So I think every school might have a different something. Their study is how do we improve on those somethings at each of the schools that is not beneficial for kids.
Right. So also having more of a conversation with the kid and the family about this. So for example, as much as I didn't like pulling someone from world language, I also knew at 3rd and 4th grade, if they weren't reading, that it was a real struggle to try and learn to read and write and the sounds in 2 different languages. So at that point it made sense, but I could see how, if someone just instead pulled them from math, something that they felt strong and capable in. So is it an idea of having more of a conversation with the families and the students specifically about these decisions?
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to the slide, she had student feedback groups, staff, parent communication groups, but also I think that this is like the beauty of what we're doing, which is, and she's excited, not that I'm saying the negative, but Jess Beatty will now take those with the team, and now they'll start to design their action steps. And those will probably be some of the action steps, right? Meet with students, meet with parents. It'll also be meet with administrators and figure out other times that we could be doing something differently.
I just have something to say. We had this same conversation with our world language curriculum and with Jessica Beatty, because once they are in high school, they make their own appointment. So they usually choose world languages to meet with the guidance counselor. So it's hard for us because world language is it's proficiency based. So whatever you do in class, it adds up and it gets practice. So when we miss a student and then they have to, they have absences and we have to catch them up, it's harder. So even though in world languages is a core subject, according to the Department of Education, it's not like an alternative class, it's a core subject.
Thank you.
And just going, I think I already mentioned mine, but I thought the vision of a colleague was great. Also, the absenteeism thing is concerning, but my understanding is it's at least trending in the right direction statewide and for us individually. So that's excellent. I don't want to cut anything short, but we are getting late, and so I thank you guys and appreciate and look forward to continuing the work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice night.
Sorry to the coordinators who had to wait.
Sheriel, you need to stop sharing.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Are they winning? They're winning.
I told my son not to set.
They're up by 24 points.
Celtics are up by 20 points?
Sorry, 27 now.
27 points. Okay.
To go quickly.
Up by 27. Keith, you can stop watching.
What's going on with sports right now?
You can stop watching. They're up by 27.
Oh, okay, sorry. I've been trying to solve all the problems.
what Keith's been doing over
Thank
the
you.
corner the whole
Going
time.
here.
What's that?
In the game. That's what Keith's been doing for the last, half an hour.
Yeah.
27 points.
Thank you for hanging in with us. Thank you to Dr. Ida Pappas, James Lavasser, and Joe Hicks is with us on Zoom. He had his own school committee meeting, just so you know, he is a school committee member himself in his own community. And they had a meeting tonight at the same time we did.
Oh, boy.
Yes, so thanks for hanging in there.
I bet his meeting's done, right? No?
We are not done. I just got told of our own teaching and learning report. And no, we still have a couple more things to do, but I think we might be ahead of you. We might.
All right. Okay. So we're going to get going. In respect to time, we're going to cover a lot of topics tonight, and I'm not going to cover everything in the slides. Please ask us if you have any questions as we go, or please email me afterwards. But we're going to cover a lot of topics. Teaching and learning, there is a lot that falls underneath teaching and learning, and I wanted to touch upon some of those things tonight. So we have, and I'm sorry, I need to get into our presentation. In the area of teaching and learning, we have received $143,969.92 in grants. And I wanted to thank Joe Hicks for writing the successful grant 215A, the genocide grant. So we are using those in a wide variety of ways that you can see there. I wanted to touch upon our multi-language learners. DESE still calls them ELLs, English language learners. They fall under teaching and learning also. I just wanted to touch upon a few points here. They all, in addition to MCAS, they have to take a test called Access, and Access scores range from 1 to 6. And DESE assigns teaching time with English as a second language teacher depending on their scores. So DESE's guidelines are if a student is level 1 or 2, they have at least 2 periods a day with an ESL teacher. Levels 3 and 4, at least 1 period a day. This is where we are falling as a district. Last year, we had 81 L students take the Access test. 12 of our students are entering, which is the beginning level, 7 emerging, 32 developing, 25 expanding, 4 bridging, and 1 reaching. So that impacts how we've come to you before about our request for support in English language learner teachers or tutors that we need. Homeschool students falls under teaching and learning also. Just to remind you that they do receive IEP and 504 services, and if they submit a homeschool plan, I physically go down and work with Jess Beatty, and I get her approval that they are meeting those goals. I am looking at the academic goals, she is looking at the 504 IEP goals. Just to remind you too, all homeschool students can join in-school and out-of-school offerings, such as sports, classes, all of that. And just to remind you, they're required to submit a homeschool plan from age 6 until 16. You can see we have some students that are older than 16. Some parents just really like that connection and still submitting them. They've been doing it for years and years and years. And those all follow the general law, Chapter 76, Chapter 1. And just to remind you, every plan has to follow the policy that you as a school committee has set. So they do not meet that criteria, I send them a letter back, please send me this information back. We go back and forth, okay? But once they've homeschooled, they know the lay of the land and they know what they need to do. So we currently have a total of 25 students this school year. We did have some short-term students too that were not included in that total.
Since I'm the first curriculum review to talk, I'll kind of give you the lay of the land as to how the they basically sort of start up. Our World Language Curriculum Review was very accelerated. We had a goal of finishing it in 1 school year, and we are on target. So phase 1 really is about establishing norms of our meeting, which I think helps us sort of take everybody's viewpoints and make sure all voices are heard. We establish a vision, but we also crosswalk that with a lot of data that we receive from the equity audit to NEASC reports. And we also looked at our past curriculum reviews. We have 3 streams of languages, so we developed philosophy statements for each of them, and then we looked at current research, and we did a gap analysis. We created surveys. You probably received one for the community, but we also created surveys for faculty and for our students, and we just this Tuesday looked at all the data from that. We are now in the process of, after having done an inventory of our resources, we have identified things that we wanted to purchase, and we're in the process of creating a list to bring back to you as to where we want to go with the program and our new resources. And then at the very end of it, in September, we will write I will write a review of the entire process and present it to Dr. Kuska.
The next curriculum review is the science, technology, and engineering. Started this year in September. It was our goal to finish this year, but I think we're going to push that out till next year a little bit. We started off doing basically the same structure, creating a vision, creating norms, and then we started to look at doing a gap analysis and looking at what standards we cover at what grade level. Then we started diving into MCAS scores, MCAS testing, and seeing where weaknesses are, doing a full gap analysis. We've looked at some curricular resources. There's STEM scopes at the middle school. Discovery Education has some good resources. They have a free trial going on right now of those resources, so we haven't decided if we're going to move forward with either of them, but they are piloting them currently and testing them out at the middle school. The high school is going to dive deeper into the biology and the physics MCAS that results from last year. They're in the process of doing that now, and they're going to continue into the fall. And that's where we are with the science. Math has a slightly different visual here. We started the math one in 2022, so it was started a year before, so I had a different template when I made this one. Similar process. We started off with our vision, then we did a gap analysis, looked at any weaknesses, strengths within math and the curriculum. We then looked at all the resources that are out there. There's tons of math resources, tons of different curricula out there. We narrowed it down to several and piloted 3 at the elementary schools, 2 at the middle school, and 2 at the high school. And we ended up choosing at the elementary school Eureka Math Squared, which we have already purchased and has already delivered. It's actually sitting at the loading dock over at Miller and Placentino, so we're getting those materials distributed before the end of the school year, so teachers have teacher manuals to go home with if they'd like to look at over the summer or prepare. And all the student stuff is going to be stored until the fall when we'll distribute it. The high school picked Reveal, as did the middle school. The orders are being processed now, so those hopefully will be in by the end of the school year. And we're wrapping that up. I'll have a final report for all of you by the end of the school year is my plan. So I just got to write that up with all recommendations. There's also the recommendation to use All Learners Network to facilitate PD.
Thank you, and I really appreciate being able to zoom in for this meeting. Thank you all for allowing me to do that. So for ELA secondary grade, we recognize that we couldn't do all the things at once, especially with math being such a significant change in terms of curriculum instruction for the younger grades. So last year in the fall of 22, we started with just the secondary ELA in the middle of the high school. We did all the same steps as everybody else. We did a lot of the work around investigating some materials, looking at what we currently do and trends and current research. Last year, at this time, we showed you some of the interim recommendations that we have, and we began to do some of that work last summer, bring more diverse books in, developing some more choice units and literature circles for kids in the early grades. We met a couple times this past year to finish that work. I've been writing the report, and we'll have that to you by the end of the school year in terms of like what our final recommendations are. It will be final in that we done all the work we can do, and it'll be a strong copy of the report, but Joni, can you go to the next slide? We can't have a final thing done until we finish the K-5 curriculum review, because this last step would be to make sure that all the curriculum it all aligns with each other. So it would mean that we would have to go back and not necessarily make changes to the things we recommend at the secondary level, but make sure that both halves are informing each other and it all makes sense. So it would be like a 98% draft done to you soon. We just started the K-5 ELA curriculum review in January. We're having our second meeting on Monday. We got together and started establishing our strong mission and vision for ELA, and then myself and Ilsa O'Brien and Jenny Mann at Placentino and Miller met with student groups through the superintendent's roundtable process, and we got to talk to some kids about their ELA experiences and what they like and what some of their struggles are, and we're going to share some of that feedback with the entire curriculum review group on Monday, and we're going to do some continue our work with visioning, and that will continue through next year. It could result in the work when we look at what we're doing. One of the end products could be, or could not be, thinking about, are we using the right resource, and do we need to choose something different? And that's a decision I'll have to make next year. And hopefully, and one last thing, sorry, Joni, that would then result in us going through the pilot process and looking at materials and choosing, if that's necessary, a new product. But we're not sure we're going to end at that spot just yet.
Thank you. We've already covered this slide, so we're going to move on.
Curriculum documentation, the UBD curriculum maps. So Unified Arts is a little different than some of the other areas. It's definitely been a marathon to do this work, and I say that because many of the members in the Unified Arts write 6 years of curriculum, and they don't even get a textbook. They create it themselves, all the materials. So this, what you're seeing here, is a great deal of work. I'm really proud of them. And also, Unified Arts, their only required courses are K through 8, except for the high school wellness courses of Wellness 9 and Wellness 10. So these are also all the electives in Unified Arts that are here. So pretty much everything is 100% done. There's a couple areas that will be done by the end of the school year. We're just finishing them up, selecting a couple standards, editing, formatting. They will go up by the end of the school year. And wellness, all 100%, and performing arts. Visual arts, 67%. That teacher is the only one in the building, so doing all the work by themselves, which most groups at least have a partner. And then we have our world language curriculum review on the next slide. So most of the things that are going to be developed will be in response to some of the curriculum materials that we're going to purchase through curriculum reviews. So that hasn't been included here. But because it's a required course, the elementary is 100% done, and Spanish has like 1 or 2 more units in the 8th grade. And library, again, this is a teacher who is writing 6 years of curriculum by themselves. So very close.
Mr. Hicks?
Thank you. So we've been working a lot on social studies, in particular this year, especially at the elementary school, and Placentino did so much great work with our PD Day to just get that done across the Commonwealth. It feels like social studies in elementary schools gets shortchanged, and we're really working to change that. So I really appreciate their hard work on that day, being very thoughtful and coming together to really get their ideas met. So we can start making those changes. In ELA, we're at 67%. In Placentino, Miller, we're going to, in rough draft form, just have them posted. I need to do some final edits. Rams in the high school, we're all done to 12th grade. We get put in for, it's making some changes in the 12th grade from 3 different courses to 1 civics course, and that is part of the summer work that's happening this year, or we put in for that for a proposal, so that will get done. Miller's hard at work also trying to really capture a writing scope and sequence, and I think I have all the information there. things done for 2 out of 3 grades. And thank you to Ilsa O'Brien for really working with teachers to think critically about what the writing scope and sequence should look like and how to build that with kids over the course of their time there. And in social studies, it's I have all the things to have 2 out of 3 grades done there for 67%, and the other one will be done, I imagine, next year. But a lot of great work has happened.
All right, so for STEM, science, technology, and engineering first, Placentino has 3 science, I guess, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade. They're all done. Miller for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, they're all done. The engineering course that Michelle Hastings teaches, that's all done for all 3 grades. At Rams, 2 out of 3, 8th grade isn't done yet, but the other 2 grades are done. In the high school, biochem and physics are completely done. For math at Placentino and Miller, there's a new resource, and so we have a scope and sequence of Envision, which they were using, but the new curriculum has not been mapped yet. Ashley Bichard will be working on that next year. Rams, all 3 grades are done. In the high school, Algebra 2 just needs some tweaks to be done. I can probably do it by the end of the year, but we're getting a new curriculum next year, so it's all going to have to be tweaked anyway. A lot of the standards will stay the same, but they'll have to be moved around next year. And then for computer science, Placentino, Winnie Carey put together all 3 grades. At Miller, Allie Curley did those 3 grades, and then at Rams, Cole Perkins did those 3 for 6, 7, 8. So 100% done.
We're totally shifting. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes?
Can I just mention one thing about
Sure.
those when we say 3 out of 3? That means we're talking about the whole grade. And just to recognize that within a grade, there's multiple units that go into doing that. So like there might be 5, 6, or 7 different units that in a grade that had to be done and mapped and worked out. So there is those numbers might look small, but they are actually represent a substantial amount of work.
Right, that's for a whole course, not just the 3 out of 3 is for 3 courses that are completely done and multiple units for each course.
And some of the lower grades even have like 12 units. If you look at kindergarten, they're short units, so they've done a lot of work.
Thank you for reminding us of that, everybody. A couple school committee meetings ago, I shared with you the teaching and learning survey questions. These are the results. So I'm going to very quickly go over it. But 88.6% of the teachers are either confident or very familiar with the curriculum frameworks. I just want to point a few out here because you can definitely read these on your own. But this was asking, how can the district support you in effectively utilizing your content standards to design units? A couple things I wanted to point out. Time is the biggest thing, right? And the biggest thing, the most people said PD days. They want us to use that. Also department time, school business days. That's when a principal will get coverage for them so they can go to a meeting during the school day. Also grade level meetings and course partners. They also asked for professional development or PD in curricular areas. We heard them loud and clear. We are concentrating on that next year. There'll be a lot of math, there'll be a lot of world language. I mean, we're really listening to what they're saying. They also said summer work. I'll be talking to you about that later on. And also, part of the summer work, I just wanted to point this out, is they brought up Montessori, how to intertwine curriculum for 3rd and 4th grade in ELA and math. Math is happening this summer. That is part of the summer work. This was the same question. I just wanted to point out the first one, and I did literally take direct quotes. This one really spoke to the incredible work that's happening. If a coordinator were to, I'm sorry, this is the quote, not the same quote I was thinking of, I apologize. So in this quote, they're talking about how curriculum coordinators have helped them, but it's also going to get better next year with building-based positions. We are going to have more support for teachers to quicken that process up. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. Okay, the next question is, in regard to development of stage 1 UBD documentation, in which areas do you need more support? Overwhelmingly, you could see finding time, to work with colleagues. Again, it's about time. The second one is more training on transfer tasks. That is one thing that we realize we need to give more support to teachers. So I'll be asking Ida, along with the building-based people, to really work in curriculum time on one-on-one, working on having them understand what that is, a transfer task is. The next question, we are asking them the most effective ways to collaborate with their colleagues to continue working on scope and sequence, lesson planning, and transfer tasks. Number one, professional development here. You can see some themes that we got from the survey, right? The second one was common planning time, so that's during the day. Third is grade, team, and department meetings, and fourth, curriculum meetings. So we will be reimagining or reinventing some of those times we have with teachers after the school day or with the school day, and principals and I have already been talking about that. The next question was asking them what additional support they need to effectively integrate UBD documentation and state standards to impact student learning outcomes. The number one response, again, see a theme, during professional development. And second one is additional time identified by building administrators. It's that school-based time that they can get out and work with teams and the curriculum coordinator. Next question, I have 2 slides on. I'm not going to go everything, but the question was, in what ways have you been most successful in UBD documentation and transferring it to your daily work? Some of the ones I just want to point out, further down in this, I've been most successful at threading the course level essential questions throughout the units to help students develop the concepts as they are relevant to the content they retain throughout the course and hopefully beyond. Another quote, it has been easier to plan in advance in order to make more engaging lessons and with more hands-on activities. More comments for that same question I just wanted to point out. This was a Spanish example I wanted to talk about that Ida was working with. The most successful thing has been getting everyone teach the same concepts and skills after writing our Spanish curriculum. As a Spanish team, we worked on a common agenda to ensure viable lessons for students regardless of what teacher they have. That's what we're trying to do, vertical and horizontal alignment. The agenda includes the objectives and can-do statements, as well as links to the various activities we do in class and transfer assessments included in the UBD documentation. Another quote, UBD documentation has been most useful in implementing scaffolding and strategies for struggling students. Another quote, I think that it helps me better prepare for classes as I get a chance to critically analyze the lessons we have. And the bottom ones, coordinators helped us by doing pre-work, brainstorming, and collecting possible EQs, that's essential questions, and knowledge and skills. So that's some of the work that curriculum coordinators were doing. The next question was, how have you seen well-designed transfer tasks positively impact student learning and engagement outcomes? 3 quotes I want to point out from this page. When they can personally apply it to their lives, they are more engaged and more vested in the knowledge of how they can benefit from it. Another one, students understand the expected outcomes. And a third, hands-on activities make kids more engaged and their attitude towards the learning experience is holistic. They learn without thinking they are learning. Same question. I just wanted to point out some short ones. Once students are able to use the learning in the real world, it positively impacts the outcomes. Another, the UDL framework positively impacts student learning by creating more flexible classroom experiences where teachers can deliver meaningful learning activities to all students. And finally, I've seen students grasp a better understanding of material presented in class due to the transfer task. So some very powerful answers. Next question, to what extent has UBD documentation helped your team develop common assessments and common experiences for all? Very much or somewhat is 71.5%, which is really encouraging. Dr. Pappas brought up the other day, that is what's in stage 2. So we're already getting 71.5% of teachers to say they're feeling confident about the stage 2. Next question. To what extent do you think the process of UBD documentation has helped to vertically align the curriculum? 68.6% of teachers said very much or somewhat. Have you used the UBD documentation to bring new team members on board more efficiently? We have 34.3%. Ida and I were talking about this, so we have some work to do there. We need to show them how it really is so powerful when somebody new comes on, how they can effectively use that. And we'll use that knowledge in New Teacher Institute when we get all our new teachers to kind of explain the power of that. Okay, we are very excited to have, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong thing, to have building-based STEM and humanities curriculum and intervention support next year. So you can see the shift there. Those people will report to both myself and the building-based principal. We will have meetings on a regular basis that those people will be present with me and the principal, so we're all on the same page. Ida's going to remain the same, so she would be joining those conversations in those building-based meetings. So there's going to be a lot of very transparent conversations, which I think we'll see some great gains from that. Professional development. Just so you know, we do ask for PD feedback from every PD day we have. We take that feedback and we talk about it in PD council meetings. I also provide it to administrators, PD council members, and curriculum leaders. We have those same conversations about what changes we need to make. As I said before, there's a huge want for content area PD. Just to remind you, we have 4 full PD days for next school year. We're already in the weeds and planning that and reaching out to people, and we want to make sure that we have that content area PD focus. Okay, so just to talk about benchmark assessments and MTSS supports, that really falls under teaching and learning and also Dan McLeod's areas. I just wanted to remind you that iReady we are going with for K through 5, iExcel for 9 through 12. I just want to remind you though, we did not use STAR in grades 11 and 12 next year. So this is a huge addition for the high school. But never mind it being a benchmark assessment, I wanted to remind you either one, iReady and iExcel or both, provides individualized pathways for student intervention. We are going to actively use that for our interventionists and curriculum specialists. It provides small group hands-on lessons for differentiation and intervention. It provides reports that relate students' mastery of standards, and it's based on academic needs, identifies what students can do and what the next steps are in supporting students. Teachers can customize domains and lessons for students to work on. So that layer of tier 1 and tier 2 support. And Mr. McLeod and I were talking about it. We just wanted to make sure that you realize that it will be integrated into the data dashboard, but we will be able to bring over that STAR legacy information into the dashboard also. And then finally, we have a lot of summer work going on, and these are just some of the focus areas that we are working on. You can see a lot of these are tied directly to what's happening in the curriculum reviews. You can see there's things on there from Ida's, Dr. Pappas's area. Those second and third bullets are from there. You can see a lot of them are from James' area with the math curriculum review. And you can see that top bullet is a continuation of Jerry L's work at all 4 schools. Do you have any questions for us? It is a lot. And that's why you can think about it and email me if you would like.
I'm glad about the last slide, because my very first question was, when are we doing all this? Because I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of summer work. So.
Yes, it is a
with
lot of summer work.
I'm assuming.
Yes,
yeah,
and we are going to, and to go to your point, we are really reimagining, like I said though, how we can use the time that we do have during the day, right? So we want to be we did not have those building-based people. These guys did an incredible job, but they're working for the entire district. So I'm going to be working closely with the building-based people that we can have a very well thought-out plan for curriculum meetings. And we couldn't clone these. I would love to have cloned all 3 of them, but they could not be present at all the curriculum meetings either. And so those building-based people will be able to move the work quicker because they can concentrate on their building meetings.
And we took that feedback, we heard from teachers, despite all of the feedback and the changes that we're making, I can't even, like, when you see this coming to fruition, it's always a slow start when we were starting from scratch in a lot of areas. We did have work done, I'm not saying we didn't, but we talked about 2011, the last math curriculum review. So in 2 years to have, I just want to thank you all so much. I think you've taken our strategic plan, you brought it to life with the vertical alignment. This is much needed change in the district, and it's really positive for our students. So thank you very much. Thank you. And Joe, I know he's not here, but
yes.
And Joni, thank you very much for leading this work.
If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Yep. Sarah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
So there were a couple of instances where there was a single teacher having to do, like a single teacher, so like the middle school art teacher, like what kind of support is, because I know she's already got,
exactly,
for her specifically, she's got a whole bunch of students already.
Yeah,
and to do this on top of that.
And they have 700 students a week, and 6 curricula to write. So I totally agree. So having time, I think this actually speaks to what Joni was saying. Sometimes the schools have curriculum meetings after school at the same time, and so I have to pick and choose where I'm going to go, because Rams often I have Casey, and I can give her a very detailed list of what I'm hoping to happen. So it was a little bit of a tag team, but I can also meet with people individually outside of that, and we do that. But it is oftentimes they'll hand me, this is what I'm doing, in a bunch of documents, or sometimes they'll invite me to a Google Classroom, and I'll just start putting together the structure of the unit, and then we can meet and sort of flesh out some things. I'll say, I see an assessment here. Is this the end of the unit? It looks like it's about this many weeks. So yeah, it's a lot of guessing and then a lot of sort of backtracking and just saying, is this what you intended? So.
And then another quick question, hopefully. You mentioned that you were referring to, you would go back and look at MCAS, especially for some of the science stuff. I'm just curious, were there many gaps in terms of?
So we're in the process of going through at the high school. At the last meeting, they actually pulled out at the middle school.
Yeah, the middle school, the biggest gaps that we identified, we really need to figure out where the engineering standards are going to fit.
Okay.
And honestly, a lot of schools, every school I've been at struggles with that because there's so many standards for science.
Picks an appropriate tool, a power drill, and it's like clearly designed for like a shop, and we don't have that, so we're trying to figure out how we can cover that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my last question, how many teachers got the survey? Because I see there's 35 responses, which I know so it's a sampling.
Correct.
And I get, if we look at some of the responses, when we're talking about time is probably their biggest. So I get it. I just was curious.
You can see if you look at, I just wanted to point out, see in the top, like underneath the question, the top left, you can see how many responses.
That's what I assumed that you.
It went to everybody.
Yeah.
We have listservs for teachers. It went to all 4 schools.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Are we able to see the PD feedback, since that was the #1 reason, like that was a huge driver for teachers, like seeing that feedback on an ongoing basis?
Wait, say that?
The feedback.
The PD day feedback.
See all of the data.
Oh, sure.
I mean, we do on every PD day, so what we can do is Joan put together a few slides.
That would be awesome. Just to see
I can
how
do a report out.
Trending too, is it improving? Because I mean, it's such an important area for teachers.
Absolutely. I usually do a briefing, but I can do the trends and everything, and sure, absolutely.
Nothing special, just
getting your efforts. Yep, not a problem.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you. you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please go home.
A little bit if you're going to. Only if
Those are
Dr.
good.
Bernard would Dr. Kutzke would like, I just put the math bit.
I've done some work with one. New maps. Sure.
Yeah, I'm not, I just didn't know if you.
I owe you a copy.
The top. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
What are we talking about?
How long does it take the map?
I'm stopping you, Sharon.
Oh, math, yes, stay, yes, please, stay, thank
How
you.
long is it going to be?
It's like 4 slides.
Okay.
I think, right? 4 or 5, yeah, it's very brief.
That's good.
Just a quick
Yes.
overview, yes.
Yes.
Get this up, I apologize. I was like, what did you ask? Sorry about that.
All right, and oh, I can't get the slide. Hang on a second. I'm move this up a little. Sorry, my machine's not
I'm
cooperating.
out of the meeting now,
Yep,
so I'm not
I'm just
screwing
trying
you.
to share. No. There we go. All right. So we had talked a number of times about how we're moving towards Algebra 1 and what is our plan to get there. And when we had that conversation, I'm going to go through a little bit of the timeline of where we started this conversation. I'm just going to go through it myself since Joni's presented a lot already. But if you look back at the timeline of events, the team came together. James, you were at that as well. Our December 13th Math Community Forum. We heard from parents. We heard from school committee. And then March 14, we had the survey results that came from the Math Forum as well. Talked about establishing a study group, and that was where you voted to bring Algebra 1 back to grade 8 for 25-26. I know there was a hope that we might be able to bring it back for next year, but honestly, with a brand-new math curricular resource coming in at all levels, the teachers need time for that. They need the PD time to try to now shift all of the standards and the pacing. There was no way they could get it done from March and have it ready for September. However, we are working towards that process. In April, the Rams teachers did work on power standards, grades 6 to 8. Then we also had, they're shifting the geometry standards. That was happening in May. June 3rd, we've had already, just recently, Rams had Learners Network come in and did training with them. Was it high school as well, Ian Rams?
No.
That's why that was just Rams. And this is a partnership that we're going to continue with All Learners Network. We're going to bring elementary teachers are going to get Learners Network next year as part of their PD plan. And it's not just helping them learn the math curriculum. It's also helping the curricular resources. It's also helping them to learn how to differentiate with those resources. So it's a really rigorous planning and a multi-layered approach to improve our math program overall.
And just to be clear, it's not Algebra 1 for all, it's
No.
Algebra 1 offering.
No, and that's what our study group's going to involve. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. So,
Can I just ask,
oh,
what
sure.
do you mean by shifting the geometry standards? Are we covering less geometry in
So
middle?
an example is like there's a 7th grade standard about the volume of a circle, and so shifting that down to 6th grade. So 6th grade will teach that after the MCAS, so they have a little bit extra time now, so they're teaching it currently.
Okay.
So they actually already made that shift this year,
Got
and
it.
so next year there'll be more of a shift, and so the following year even greater shift. So as we shift those geometry standards down to earlier grades, it'll open up more time in 8th grade for more of the algebra standards.
Part of it was looking for redundancy as well.
Yep.
Are we doing the same standards over again? We may not need to do them 3 times, things like that as well.
And those are all based on the teachers having very thoughtful conversations with each other, right? About where can that fit, right? It's not James deciding, it's not me deciding, it's them having collaborative conversations, figuring out where it would fit.
And when we talked about the geometry standards, the high school teachers were involved with that because they have a geometry course, obviously at the high school level, so they know what's going to be coming up for them.
So that's where the summer work comes in place as we start working on pacing guides and working on the power standards and making these shifts so that it will happen really effectively for 25-26, but we're already moving in that direction for next year. So pre-K to 5 is going to work on their Eureka Math unit development over the summer. 6 to 12 is also working on math development of units. And then grades 6 to 8 is going to have some of the work on the power standard shifts, the pacing that we talked about, and then also work on their UDL implementation with All Learners Network. So this is a really, we're excited for this. The teachers are really excited. I met All Learners Network as well, and just I feel like we're building the excitement for PD that we haven't been able to see as much. So I'm seeing a lot of enthusiasm throughout the district. So with that, we talked at, in that March meeting about putting together a math study group to really do this effectively and give the teachers time to learn the new resources and then figure out where the shifts really need to happen to have an effective launch for 25, 26. So again, we identified that need at the 2024 March meeting, and then we're going to seek teachers and administrators to volunteer at the beginning of the school year to be part of that work group. And we'll have monthly meetings through February. Joni will be leading that, but I plan on attending a number of those as well. And then we will come back to you next March, and we're going to make recommendations for any potential changes and whether we're going to have you vote on any of the potential changes in spring of next year. And then we'll be ready to implement math curriculum changes fall 2025. So I know the big question is about leveling or not leveling and things like that. That'll be part of this process as well.
And I'm hoping some people from the group, other than us, can come and speak to you.
That would be great.
So you can hear from them.
That would be awesome. The only one thing I would ask, and I don't want too much more work on, but at the same time, could we get like a December interim update? Just so I don't want it to get to March and be the first time we see what's.
Our hope is to start meeting early in the school year, so I'm sure we can do something around
something
that.
sort of an interim update. I think that would be helpful.
So this is some of the focus areas that Joni and I have been discussing and we'll work with the group on. Really the research. Sometimes people are operating on guts and emotions and what they believe, but we haven't done a lot of looking at research on pros and cons. There's multiple facets and multiple opinions and perspectives on this, but what does the research tell us about leveling or not leveling? And then if we go one way or the other, what is the impact? Because it doesn't just affect one subject. If you add more levels, you now track kids in a different way, and it could create other inequities, or so there's so much that goes into that. So whatever decision we make, we really need to make sure we vet it out, and we know what the other effects of that, so that we can adequately prepare for any other changes that are needed as a result. And this kind of goes back to what we talked about tonight, ties hand in hand with our equity steering recommendations and some of the recommendations that the equity audit gave us. And we really also, we talked about the data dashboard being such a critical piece for us. We have really started to move towards looking at data in a more meaningful way. You heard that tonight with the curriculum discussion. We had not done as much. I talked to you about that when we did our data rankings. We had quite a shift around 2017 of saying we really don't need to look at that data. We're doing great. And unfortunately, what happens when you stop looking at it, things may start to shift. And now it's time to have that balance back. And we've done a nice job already starting moving that direction. And the data dashboard is going to really help us with that. James already talked about that. We're already identifying some of those math gaps and making those shifts happen. And then the pathways and equitable entry points is going to be a big part of this math study group. That's a real. So if we're going to Algebra 1, which we are in grade 8, what are we doing to ensure that the maximum amount of kids have a possibility to enter that? It will not be for every child, but how do we maximize and not lock kids out? So the process is going to be really important. If we decide that a student might not make the test grades or whatever criteria we use, are there other ways they can enter, other supports that we can provide? And this is where I think those intervention rules will be really helpful to this process as well. So really having consistency around the process and gaining consensus with recommended changes, making sure you're never going to get everybody coming in the same direction, but trying to get consensus so that the majority of people getting that buy-in early along in the process and making action steps as a result. So I went really fast because I know we're behind schedule, but I do want to remind us that even though we're behind schedule, we did start 45 minutes or so late. So we're actually, in that respect, we're on schedule.
I appreciate some of the things you just said because I want, while we use the work of the equity group, I don't, I want to make sure that the sort of the underlying teaching sort of science, if you will, is what drives this, and then we look at how we can layer on the work of the equity group to say, so if we say, maybe the most sort of equitable thing to make it sure that everyone gets the same thing is to de-level, right? But maybe if you keep levels, but we add resources to help kids get to that place, that actually is really, in the long term, the most equitable. It may just take more resources.
Right, so let's just say we decide to add some levels back, right? That's certainly a decision that could be made. if we do that, then what should we do to make sure we have as much equity as possible within that decision?
And that's what
right?
this committee would be saying, right? So if we went this way, they're going to say, if we went either way, like, what are the ramifications, right? And looking at the schedule and the resources we have, we would need to, like, add this, or we would need to do this, right? So you have a full disclosure of everything that would need to be needed to do that.
And it might be that the recommendation, there may be multiple recommendations, either go this way and these are the resources you need.
Correct.
You go this way and these are the resources you need, and then at least there's sort of a more transparent sort of, a menu of sort of choices.
And a cohesive, consistent process, because I think we've done, this is where, I've talked to you about this for my entire career here, that we have had, we went to a very siloed approach. Each building was operating completely differently. That's really not the most equitable for kids, right? So now, it doesn't mean every building's going to be doing the things the same, but procedures can be the same for how we decide and make those decisions for kids.
And we'll have different tables of Post-it notes, so we can see which one looks like it makes the most sense.
Yeah, it's like Dr. Jordan Brown.
I mean, it wasn't the greatest visual, but it's, it was a little wonky, but at the same time, no offense to Dr. Jordan.
He
however.
thought it really looked the way he,
But
I mean, he
it's
explained it,
true.
but you wouldn't figure that out.
Yeah,
by
yeah.
looking at it, right?
In
But-
person, it probably looks a little different.
I bet in person, yes, yeah.
But some of that does feed into the equity
Yeah, was
audit
it-
recommendation of transitions.
Right.
So
Yeah.
really looking at how you're transitioning between,
And
so.
the fact is, we already have recognized that some of our lower level classes are overloaded with our special needs students and our multilingual learners, and that's just not fair. We've got to do better on that.
I really want to try to start reimagining, since we're going to have building-based people too. If we could have, like, they could run a building-based information night on opportunities, like in math, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we need to re-envision that. Like, I want to get together with them and brainstorm, like, what that looks like. But there's a lot of ways we can capitalize and do a lot of things at the equities. So I'm lucky enough to be on that, but I need to embed that in a lot of the curriculum and teaching work, right, that we're doing going forward.
So try to be really brief on that, but we're off on another journey here for next year.
Any other questions? James, thank you for staying.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Did I go
Get some
quick enough,
sleep.
James?
Thank you.
So no policy?
We have a meeting on Wednesday at 4:15 in central office.
Perfect.
Yes, yay. That didn't get to happen in May at all.
Are there any other central office admin updates?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Can I just say?
Nope, you have to, there's always one.
It's going to be real quick. Just wanted to recognize Miller Band had a concert on Tuesday, June 4th, went fantastic. And then just last night, we had a wonderful presentation by Dr. Slaney and Jenny Mann for Title I at Placentino from 6 to 7. And that's a requirement of the Title I grant. That's it.
Great, thank you. Keith, you good?
Oh, you want to do this first, and then I'll do the retirements, or do you care?
So
doesn't matter.
we can do the retirements. The only thing is at 10, 12, maybe we also do them again, the next time or something. I'm just,
Yes,
just
I
to
will.
have a little earlier. But let's do them quickly, not quickly, but let's just put them up on the screen
Sure.
and highlight them, and then highlight them at like
Put it up so we
7:30.
can all cry over them just for a second.
Yes, it's always sad to
There are a bunch
see
of
our,
wonderful names up there.
Veteran teachers exit, especially some we've already talked about. So I do want to highlight a tremendous amount of veteran expertise in education moving on this year. This is a higher retirement year than last year. Just people are at that point in their careers. And at Placentino, we have Gail Bork with 26 years, Kim Flynn, 24 years. Thank you to Stacy Kenny, 32 years at Placentino, Felicia Lovely, 16 years. And then at Miller, Vicki Blackmore with 22 years, Donna J, 17 years, Claire Picard, we already talked about earlier with her work with our French consulate, for 23 years in the district, Lydia Shields at 27 years. At Rams, Wendy Lucier, 20 years in the making. At the high school, Ann Brady has been with us for 16 years, Rick Mann for 35 years, Dawn Quinley for 21 years, and we had one addition that is not on here. John Rob Shaw has been with us for 35 years in the maintenance department as well. So thank you so much to all of these people. We will be doing next week a breakfast. We started that tradition. I brought that tradition in a few years ago, I think. I did it at my previous district, and I thought it was just a nice way, because we were doing the things after school, and I noticed that people really would rather, enjoy it more if we can bring them to breakfast during the school day and honor them in that way. So it's on the 10th or 11th? I think,
11th.
I think you were invited, so it should be there. So if you can make it, we'd love to have you.
I would like to.
We understand it's challenging for you during the workday, but we appreciate and we will.
As long as nobody kisses me this year.
What's that?
Kelly can't kiss me during it, just.
Goodness.
We didn't get Keith on the list. But that's probably because we're not really letting him go.
That would be an update.
Okay.
It's after 10. It's going off the rails already.
Well, the select board claims that nothing good happens after 9, so I don't know what 10 means.
Oh, it's going. It's going to go.
The reason that you're just getting this and it wasn't in your packet is it literally just got approved and Ian was on the committee, so he knows. I had been working on this with, one of the positions in the teacher's contract is any of the curriculum specialist positions that are altered, that the union has involvement in the job description. We do not have job descriptions for all of our teaching positions. It really would be impossible to do so, and it's not contractual either. But it would be wonderful we could. We just can't at this point. But this particular anything to do with curriculum is part of our contract expectations. So I took positions that were in previous had been voted on, either for our curriculum roles or interventionist roles that we've had in the past, and I kind of looked at redundancies and put it all together, and then we were finally able to meet this week after I had shared out the drafts a few weeks back, and we were able to look at it and try to compromise on some of these things and make it more, again, eliminate some things that seem redundant and really organize them in a different way. So this is what we've come up with for our final job description for these new roles, whether they're STEM or humanities. And we have an agreement in place today that we'll be signing as long as you agree to vote this in as a final, subject to change in the future if we decide. But right now, this is our version moving forward, and we're excited that we're going to be able to do this work together with our teachers.
So I was part of the back and forth anyway, and so I think that it's a fair compromise with the HFT. One thing that we talked about at budget was just sort of tracking a little bit to sort of see the difference in time between interventionists and curriculum, more of a self-reported type of thing, but just so we can get an idea of how it's being used. Not a big ask, just simply saying,
Yeah, I think if we talked about, so one of the things that I added in here was that they're going to be like tracking when teachers are doing intervention with students, because they'll have small groups that'll be in their schedules, but they'll also help support the tutors that do this work. So the teachers themselves will have, they'll know how many hours they put in, and we can kind of percentage-wise calculate out over time how much, it's probably not going to be an actual 0.5 split. There'll be some times that they might be doing more intervention work, and other times it may be, so that's why it's hard to divide it up equally, but we want to see if it's equitable overall.
And based on Dan's recommendations, I'll be sending out a monthly questionnaire of self-reporting for them. So I could give that information back to you then.
There's a stipend attached to it, too?
Yes, these roles are already in the contract. They have a stipend, and if you look, some of it's because they are actually, like the coordinators presenting, they'll be presenting to you. And the bigger part is because they're going to be doing intervention and curriculum in these roles, it will also be, I'm envisioning that they'll be doing activities at night with kids, which they sometimes do already.
That's why I wanted to just clarify why there also is a stipend attached to it. So.
So, I think you want this tonight because to help with the posting.
I just want to be able to have, we've hired a number of these people already, have shifted from other positions or different, but I want to be able to show them what we are expecting overall, because they're not 100% sure yet.
So I'm comfortable voting this tonight, but I know I've seen it, so does everyone have any view on that?
So are we hiring any now, or they're all hired and this is for?
Not, some are hired.
Okay.
So I believe, our middle school are already in place, and our elementary, I believe, are in place now. High school is, and Rams as well, right? Both elementary and Rams are all of the three schools are in place. High school, I think, is still doing interviews.
So we will use this to recruit new.
potential new?
Well, they've already applied. We have people already, but we will share out what the expectations are.
We put folks in the role before we had this, now we have this, and then now we're using this to go find, is there going to be a discrepancy?
I don't think it's going to be a problem just because we've had people in the interventions and curriculum role already, and these were taken from job descriptions we already had. We just tweaked it to make it more
It's about the same stuff we've already had.
consistent, you know?
Yeah.
And it's agreement between the admin, school committee, and the HFT, so it's...
Yep.
Okay. So if we're ready, I'll entertain a motion to accept this job description as presented for the curriculum and interventionist STEM and humanities role, STEM or humanities role.
I'll second that.
Well, you're firsting it.
Oh, all right, then I'll first, I thought you just said,
I'll entertain them.
sorry, it's after 10:15,
It's after 10:20.
10:20.
Is there a
I
second?
will- yeah, there you go.
Okay. All's in favor? That carries 6-0. So is that the date and then I signed, or you signed and then?
I just signed it. You just, I just
Initially?
had to put the date, yeah.
The date?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take draft off those, so.
Okay. Or I can sign, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Just quickly, because I forgot, we need to appoint a liaison or a representative for the maintenance workers. And I think we talked about it. Hillary thought she had been voted in, but I don't remember actually doing that, and it wasn't in the minutes.
So tag, Hillary's it, you're not here. So you
No,
can sign.
she knows she's, but, so I'll entertain a motion to
You snooze,
appoint
you lose.
Hillary as the negotiating liaison to the maintenance workers. Second. All in favor? Lisa, if you could just also just get that up with the rest of the liaisons in the minutes, but, okay. We're getting there.
All right, FAQ. Do we have an FAQ? I haven't seen an FAQ.
We do, it's on the website.
No, I thought this was a different FAQ.
No, so we have an FAQ that was a sort of adopted by the communications subcommittee.
Yes.
And so this would be to adopt it as a full school committee thing. So you've read it. It's been up on the website. The other thing, is just as part of this, is just to discuss kind of a strategy to be a little bit more nimble going forward, as far as just kind of officially sort of authorizing the communications subcommittee to do some work and put some stuff out, not necessarily on our behalf, but at least just, so that we're sort of blessing it in advance. Or we can schedule, full committee meetings, for the next couple of weeks. Nightly. so there's options.
We do need to be responsive and put information out.
This is how government works, folks.
Right, so I'm saying, if you want, I can post those every other day.
The amount of Facebook posts we do. If that's the case, then
We do have a communications meeting scheduled for tomorrow, but I would love to cancel it if we don't need it.
Well, part of that also, I think, was to get out of sort of a summary of what we did tonight. That's up to the community. That's up to the communications
We can certainly have
crew. Does anyone want to make a motion to sort of adopt the FAQ as presented on the website currently and sort of?
Yeah, I wanted to add something.
Okay.
Now I can't find it.
Sure. Just go to holliston.k12.
I'm on it.
And we'll hit the please click here to see important information in the pop-up.
To me.
I didn't get the pop-up.
Did you hide it for good?
No.
I didn't get a pop-up.
I'm on it. Hold on. Let me just go back.
What drop down is it?
I don't know. It just went to some weird. I know,
There's
but I
also-
clicked on it. It's still going.
At the top, there should also be a selection for special town
Here,
meeting.
information. All right. It just disappeared before I could do it. All right.
I know.
So- One of the things that I'm not sure that we touched upon was about the salary adjustment, and one of the reasons behind it in terms of the benefits that are offered in the district and the benefits that our teachers and other staff are, their portion of that, it's a 60%, right, is paid for by the town. Keith's looking at me. And in other districts, in other districts, you'll see that at more like the 70%, right? So your dollars don't go quite as far. Is that fair?
It varies quite a bit, to be honest with you. I mean, I paid in one district, I was getting.
I'm not trying to put
coverage.
anything on, I'm just saying
Another
that that's
district
just
was
a
83, another
fact
was
of
50%.
how far the salaries
Would it
go.
make sense to follow up and ask a few more questions about how it varies offline, and we can bring it up again
Yeah,
if needed?
it was something I just thought I wanted to.
No, I hear you, but I feel like it's late. There's a couple more things, but I think Dr. Kuska, maybe if you guys can connect, and then if it's.
Yes.
Yes. Keith can probably already some of them.
Okay. Thanks.
So we're ratifying this, but as new questions come up, which they likely will, are we looking to add to this potentially?
We certainly can.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'd like to sort of empower the communications subcommittee to do. And then I think that if there are questions and concerns from the members who are not on the communications subcommittee, if they could email them to Dr. Kuska or Keith or someone, and she can share them with the communications subcommittee, trying to not sort of trip OML, something like that. And then we can, obviously at our next meeting figure it out. You can't, if you send it to me, then we're getting it, then we're going to end up with.
You just signed them up to be the middleman.
Right. Is that all right with you, Dr. Kuska, if you sort of act as a liaison, if there are concerns about something that the communications subcommittee puts out, to take them, to then give to them so that we don't have chain deliberations.
Come to us, I mean.
No. If members have issues.
I see.
To
Funnel them
through just so that,
So funnel them through Sarah, is what you're saying?
well, through an admin,
Or Dr. Kuska.
Okay.
who will then. Yeah.
Just so you don't have any OML things.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we just have to be careful.
Right, this is why we don't do that. This is why it happens. Okay.
No, I understand.
I would be supportive of that in the temporary as we're dealing with this particular issue,
Yes.
but globally, I'm not okay with it.
No.
Okay.
This is a.
Because I just don't think that it's appropriate for us to do this.
I fully
think we can
agree
definitely
with
get
you.
ourselves into trouble.
Yes. No. This is not
And
a.
I see this more as like the June 20th.
Right. And then over the
And
summer
then
we'll reassess.
over the summer, I think we
have more
should
time. Yep.
be able to really get back to our regular practice of full community.
So I'll take a motion to sort of adopt the FAQs as a Holliston school committee set of FAQs, and then also sort of authorize the communication subcommittee to continue the work that they've been doing in the manner that we've laid out.
Moved by Dawn.
All those in favor? Okay, great. That's carried 6-0.
Is there stuff you want us to review for tomorrow?
Well, we can review. I mean, there's stuff that in the folder, the special town meeting
Do
override
you want to go
document.
through that with them? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, since we're in session, might as well. I think that I'd like to get an email out to the community tomorrow, just summarizing some things, and then also the most important is really the process. June 20th, then there's a vote. We don't have a date for the vote yet, and so Sarah provided a couple of things, 2 sort of one-pagers. One with a great QR code, which I need to learn how to do, and then a longer form. Those are in your folders. We should let's maybe look at the long form first, and then there's also something that I put together, which is we need to provide comments that will go in the warrant. That then when the finance committee provides their comments and the select board provides their comments, that'll be what people will see. So the select board has closed the warrant, posted the warrant, but it was a very bare bones, just sort of getting the article out there. When the finance committee votes its recommendation, it'll be a more comprehensive, and we have the opportunity to put in what we'd like. And it can be as much or as little as we want, but will sort of be our initial opening to town meeting, I guess, if you will, in addition to and then we'll be doing a presentation. So when I put this together, I was basically copying and pasting from some other documents that either we put out or I'd written, and so we have a few things to look at. We can take time to do that, or just approve them.
Consistency is key.
What's that?
I'm glad you pulled from other documents, because I think consistency will be key here. Where's the one-pager going? What's the plan?
So the one pager can either be something that we have to hand out, that we can, if we go to do a information night or information at the senior center, we can hand out, or at our if you want to print them off and bring them to the office hours, just to kind of, so then that's why the great QR code is there. It brings
Yeah, the QR code one is for any printed version.
right.
And they can,
And so then there were two ways I thought of putting out an email tomorrow. One would be the other short version, which is essentially the same as the one with the QR code, but without the QR code, but then links to the longer statement, or just putting out the longer statement.
Just do the shorter with links to the longer.
yeah, that's what I
People will, they'll lose it. But if they want to know more,
That's what
they'll-
that's what I thought, but I just want to provide options.
Are we going to have to restate this once we decide on the election date? We'll have to resend these out?
We won't be sending this out. We'll probably, it'll be very short, like,
I'm
you know.
assuming it'll be after the town meeting so that we can take that piece out.
I wouldn't foresee, let's see what happens. You know, it sounds like they're going to decide on the date for the election anywhere between June 10th and June 20th.
Yeah, which is...
So let's see what happens.
I mean, the question is, do we just focus on one? We lay it out here, but we focus on one step first and then get to the next one.
No, totally. It's just there have been questions that I've seen on Facebook and I've had in person from people who are pretty well informed about what's going on in town, who are just confused about the overall process. The town we haven't gone through this in 14 years. Granted, it's actually the same as what happens for the debt exclusion overrides. You have a warrant article that approves it, and then you vote. But it's sort of all wrapped up, and it's
been a while.
Yeah, but as for an operational override, it's been a while. So, just for anyone still watching, it is a two-step process. It's now 10:31. Nothing.
Don't leave the letter, Dan, again.
It's a two-step process. We first go to town meeting and vote June 20th, 7 p.m., Holliston High School auditorium. We're working on getting babysitting. There'll be
provided by the Fitzgerald and.
Who's providing babysitting?
We're working on that, but it's likely children of school
That
committee
too.
members.
John's children, all of John's children.
It's normally run by, I think, the Community Action Fund and Youth and Family Services, but because it's after the school ends, they're unable to do that. Okay.
And then you said two steps and you got to the special town meeting.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't want to forget the second.
Special town meeting vote. We vote overwhelmingly, it passes because the town supports the schools. And then there is a subsequent ballot question, which is essentially you go to town, you go to the high school, and you vote like you do at any other election, and you vote yes. But no, I can't actually say that. But anyway, you vote.
It's 10:30.
It's 10:32. No one's watching.
It's recorded.
Strike that.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
The button
Okay,
has been
so
pressed.
can I get a motion to approve the one pager, the longer form, and the town meeting warrant article as presented?
Moved by Dawn.
I didn't even read the warrant article. Where is it?
It's in the folder. I know.
For crying out
It's a
loud,
one-pager.
you can't send that stuff to me. Like,
I
I know, but it's like I don't even have any chance to read it. I get
It's
home from work and I'm
super-
coming right here.
It's not the May one.
I will not. Let's approve it pending any sort of non-largely substantive changes.
I will look at it. I'll look at feedback if there is any, but.
Okay.
I'm just going to abstain because I didn't even look at it. I don't feel like it's responsible for me to vote on it.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All's in favor?
I'm
Opposed?
abstaining, Lisa. Thank you.
One abstention. So thank you.
And we're ending.
We'll get that out tomorrow.
Bye.
Hold on. We adopted the FAQ. We voted on the warrant comments. Oh, so, wait, hold on, where are we in the?
All right, what's this June 27th business?
So,
We don't I already told you all, we don't typically meet after the end of school, and I get it.
I get it.
We've got stuff that we have
So
to
there are a
do.
few things-
It has to be like an hour,
so there are a few things that we're gonna need.
tops.
There are a few things that we're going to need to deal with. One of them relates to an executive session that we're about to have because, you know, as much as people get to go to sleep once we sign off, we still are here working.
Short, really short.
So it should be short.
Have you met us?
Hold on a second. Actually, take it back. We need to actually vote to adopt the new budget that includes the override amount to officially have that as the school committee position.
After we have the override, after we have the town meeting, the special town meeting. So that has to happen after this.
No, we need to vote
vote that
tonight.
now?
Yes.
Yeah.
The amount. It's in the warrant.
It's in the warrant.
Okay.
So go,
All right.
Cynthia,
I'm
go
just trying to
to
understand
that
the process.
folder and go to, is it the
The
bottom?
override financial details.
Yeah. Go to STM.
We're voting as our budget, but it hasn't been officially
I don't have
allocated yet.
You
'cause it
do.
hasn't
It's
been
the top
officially
folder
voted
under
on.
June 6th. It says
We're
STM
voting
/override
to increase our
docs.
request
And the top one says
Increase
override
our request.
financial details.
with the delta being the amount that we're requesting in that override.
It's the thing in green?
Right, so we're going to vote to increase our budget request for fiscal year '25 to $42,973,178.
We did meet in budget today at 6 o'clock to go over these numbers, and budget voted to approve these numbers and make it our recommendation to you this evening. And that number of $1,126,021 is the number that's on the warrant currently.
And that is the increase from the prior year. And just so that you know, that covers the teacher's contract, some other salary items, as well as a one-time increase or one-time bump and then reduction in maintenance budget so that we can address some of the other sort of maintenance issues in our building that have been raised by the community. So, and then with the following year, that then, we're not voting on this for the following year, but that would then turn into the bus money to allow us to move from 3 to 2 start times.
So that 100,000 is in the 275.
That 100,000 then gets taken out of the maintenance and into the two. It's part of the 275.
Got it.
Got it.
Nothing, I'm just. Do we want to clarify $201 per average household?
What do you mean?
Because it's based on their property, of being certain, whatever.
What document are you looking at?
The one-page communication. Maybe that's just in the weeds. Doesn't.
The other, so we're going to link, do we link in here? We're going to link to the, I think we link to the assessors We link to the town's website, which has the assessor's impact, so people can go into there and calculate their own impact. The average household is not a perfect tool, obviously, but it is a way to compare the size of overrides across towns in some ways. But it shouldn't be used.
Override impact on Holliston taxpayer, and then there's
Yeah, I think the one pager didn't have a link.
He increased it as well already, so good.
You might get some questions. It went from 195 average to 201 because of the included non-union.
Well, I mean, in there is inclusive of additional funding for the select board for non-union personnel.
The select board's
$4,000. I will say that, it's for non-union personnel in town government. These are people that traditionally have fallen behind, I guess, we're from the schools, and so I think it was more than fair that the select board look at this.
It's the message of it keeps creeping up.
Yeah. Can't change now.
Yeah.
Just let me know when you're ready to vote. Or if you have any other questions.
In the one-page communication, we call out 1 to 2 lost jobs in that bullet. Is there a reason we don't call out? Because those are done now, right? Or are they still pending?
All the moves been made as far as like the $400,000 of cuts. How many people lost their job? Not reductions in positions, but how many people did that end up?
So I believe it's 1, but possibly 2, since we haven't finished.
So it hasn't been.
Actually, let me, 1 related to any reductions from the budget, and there has been maybe 1 other that would be related to the reorganization of these roles. So that was not budgetary. We weren't trying to save money with these roles. This was really structurally.
But as far as the 400,000 goes,
Correct,
it was 8 positions that were cut, 1 lost job.
1 person that I believe.
1 person.
Do we want to update that?
Yes, we will. I will take that. Sarah, do you want to do it since you're?
Sure.
Sorry, Sarah.
No, it's fine. Right, I mean, definitely non-BTS. It's not, yeah. And that's the only one I'm aware of.
There are always personnel decisions that are being made year to year that are not included, not in any sort of job, any cost reductions, but.
And as I stated, it was related to enrollment as well. We just had less classes as well.
Okay, what are we doing now? We're voting on the warrant article? Sorry. Losing sight.
So at this point, I'll say it again. Entertain a motion to increase our budget by to $42,973,178, or by $1,126,021, which would be adopting our new budget request, with the delta being the override request.
Moved by Dawn.
Second by Sarah.
All's in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimously. Okay, good.
Are we voting on the 1-pagers, or did we already do that?
We did that already.
Okay, thanks.
It's getting very.
All right. So I think,
so
we do also need to, we'll post a meeting before town meeting. That way, that one, I might post a little bit more in advance than just the hour, so that we can go over the presentation, discuss topics that may come up that we need to discuss. But we'll also have flexibility on that. So
2 weeks.
that being said, we have come to the end of our agenda. We do have the need for executive session. We have 2 purposes listed to discuss, so I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn from open session to executive session, from which we will not return, for the purposes of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining of the public body, and the chair so declares, and this is related to just collective bargaining with the HFT, and just to be clear to the community, because it's the override is contingent, the contract is contingent on the passage of an override, there are still issues that need to remain confidential. And then further, to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or collective contract negotiations. Keith, you're screwing me up. And with non-union personnel, and this is related to the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations.
Moved by Cynthia.
Second by Dawn.
All right, Sarah, this requires a roll call vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Yes.
Don, yes. Dan, yes. Okay, it is now 11:45. We are actually only 15 minutes.
10:45, pal.
10:45. We are actually only 15 minutes late for the. Thank you very much. Good night.
It's like putting lipstick on a